we've been doing this in September, this Impact Day. So it's several, several sessions already that we have been doing. But very very interesting. So these two lovely ladies, so they actually met during Impact Day as well. Mm-hmm. So they both were in their turnovers of their careers, working with these issues in circularity and innovation. I'll let them tell you a bit more about it later. But they met during Impact Day. And now they have their own company. They're running this company. And so just when we were hearing about all this, this story, it was, okay, this makes sense. Let's have more of these moments in time where we can meet and speak about important issues and maybe collaborate on them, because no one can do everything by themselves. But yes, so just a quick intro of who we are and why we do what we do. And maybe just a bit of a shout out. So Rodrigo here, he has been doing all our tech and our recordings and our videos. So he's very professional, and passionate as well. So you're going to see him very intense working. His company is called Planet Media as well. And then we have our lovely staff, some interns that are here. Philip, Nuria, Daniel, Nico, Cami's here. Jesper, our founder, is here. Amir, our partner as well. So you get to see some faces that are working on really interesting stuff. And just a bit also back to Impact Hub Stockholm. So this space is run with a collaboration with EFG, European Furniture Group. Therefore, you see very nice furniture as well. They have, of course, sustainable processes that are implemented in their productions. And this is a showroom. So they get to bring their customers, architects as well, to get to see how people use their office furniture. And then, Scandia, our partner as well, so real estate company. So, going back to the topic of why it's so important to collaborate and, just have expertise of everywhere. And yes, so today we have a full program. So we're going to start with Xylo. They're going to speak about their work, what they do, and why it's so important to more SMEs and companies to get on board on the topic of circularity. Then we're going to have Global Shapers with their Impact Leadership Series. And then we're going to have Carus Network, that they're also going to speak on the topic of circularity, but on the youth perspective as well. So hope you stick around the whole day. Again, my name is Gabriela, and if you need anything, let us know. And real quick, before we start, everyone please just stand up. Stretch a bit, jump a little bit, so you're ready for the day with a little bit mind freshen up. And welcome to Impact Hub.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gabriela, and thank you so much, everyone who is here. It's a pleasure, it's an honor to be kicking off this day, the Impact Day, focus on circularity. We are Xylo, Sweden, and we are here to redefine waste. And we want to invite you to discussion that we came up with. Is it possible? Can wood waste be the new forest? And who are we? So we are Xylo Sweden. My name is Paula Picardo. I'm the founder and CEO. And my journey began some time ago when I was working as a sustainability specialist in a construction company. And I was in charge of waste and circularity. And I was involved in many projects trying to reduce our waste. As you know, probably construction waste is a very wasteful industry. And the materials that we are using, most of them goes to waste when they are totally useful. And we were trying to reduce this waste. So in one of the projects, we started introducing new ideas and way of collaboration. Like Gabriela mentioned, collaboration is fundamental if you want to make change. So this is what we were doing. And we saw in one of these projects that we could reduce waste 20% in 2 years. And that gave me the idea that it is possible to reduce waste, and it is possible if you have a team that is involved, and you can do this. And since then, I realized that that was my passion, that was my calling, that's what I wanted to do in life. I quit my job and I started this crazy idea about redefining waste. I presented a project with the RISE Institute, the Research Institute of Sweden, and they found it interesting. And I said, okay, I'm going to open this company and I'm going to try to push the industries to redefine waste. And here we are. And later, I met Jingqin.
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Jingqin. I'm the CTO and the co-founder of Xylo Sweden. I studied in environmental engineering for my bachelor and PhD degrees. And then I also did a postdoctor in materials chemistry at Stockholm University, and where I had innovation on biomedical materials. Now it is under business exploitation in Germany with state funds. And instead of moving to Germany, I took a position here in Sweden, work at a startup. And I worked along with the CEO and the CTO together to commercialize a new technology for water treatment with angel investments and public fundings. So I found myself across academia and industry, and I'm especially passionate about sustainable solutions and circular business development. So that's why I'm here.
Yes. And as Gabriela mentioned, and we were discussing this when we were putting the presentation together, it's very important for us to mention that in this very place, and I just understood from Gabriela that when we met, because actually we met 6 months ago, and I think it was the first Impact Day then. It must have been the first Impact Day. So
what
when we met
you here? Yes, that day.
Yeah, and I came here because one friend that was involved in a project invited me, and I thought like this. It sounds very interesting. It's about sustainability. I will just come. I have no expectations more than listen to an interesting talk. But funny thing is that I have just registered the company a few weeks before. And I was talking to one of my good friends, and she said, like, yeah, but maybe, because the ideas that you have, maybe you will need material engineer. And I was like, yeah, probably I will need a material engineer because I don't have that background. I'm a biologist and I'm like pretty much in sustainability. And then I was thinking, okay, so who I want as a partner in the future, you know? Because you just start a company and you think of like, how is your team gonna look like? And then I thought, okay, I would love to be a woman. I wanted a female lead company. She should be a material engineer because then she has the background I don't. And she should be passionate about circularity and sustainability and fashion and waste and all these things that I'm passionate about, so we can work together. I'm not going to find that person, you know, like how I'm going to, should I post something? And I went to a conference one day and they offered me advisement with a accelerator. And they said, yeah, you should find someone and you can post something on LinkedIn and you can just write co-founder needed. And it's like, okay, but it's hard. I just couldn't think that this will happen. So I came this day and I met Jingqin. And then we start talking and magic happens, you know, like we'll have it. And we find out that we have this passion for sustainability and circularity, but I don't remember what brought you here. I don't know, how was your experience?
So I was working for this water treatment company, and I'm especially interested in how we can make a sustainable technology for not only water treatment industry, because in the water treatment you evolve so much components, materials, equipments, infrastructures. So one of my friends invited me, oh, let's go to these events, which is fun, and maybe you can find someone has a similar interest. We get to know how sustainable nowadays look like. What is sustainability in general? It's a comprehensive concept. What we're gonna do as a material chemist or environmental engineer. Then I said, okay, I will be just your company to go there. And then I found a very interesting topic, a panel discussion here. And then I noticed Paula, she was talking about science-based target, everything that period I was learning. I think, I should talk to her, see what is science-based target for company needs, because I was in charge of the upscaling of the production in my previous company. So I talked to her, found a very interesting concept from her doing this material from waste. Then as a chemist, I said, you need some expertise to help you out. I can give you some suggestions or advice from expert perspective. I didn't expect that, okay, we will run a business together. So later on, and she invited me. I was so surprised, shocked. Okay, this is a big challenge. I need to make a decision. Okay, after, okay, let's do it. Yeah.
And 6 months later, we're here.
Yeah.
So we wanted to tell you about this because sometimes things happen in the most unexpected place. And we wanted to suggest you look around and maybe you can find your next business partner, the next co-founder among us, next colleague, next employer or employee. So we want to thank Impact Hub Stockholm for making these things happen and like creating magic and having this space where things like this can flourish into a company. And we are very passionate about what we're going to talk about today. But we believe that places like this are very much needed. So thank you, Impact Hub, and we will dive into our topic. And we want to show you this picture, and we actually would like to ask you what you see. There is no wrong answers, of course, but we just want to understand what do you see. So please let us know. You can tell us anything that you are seeing in the picture. So, blue sky, yes, good, blue sky. Something else? Chairs, wood, yeah.
Plastic also, there.
Yeah.
In the corner.
Something else? Trash, good. A big mess? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I think this picture is from landfill, actually, in the US. So I think, we agree it's a very nice sunny day, not that cloudy, but we see garbage, we see a mess, we see waste, right? So we will come back to this picture later, but we wanted you to keep that in mind. So when you said there is a mess and it's waste, yes, this is what we are gonna try to talk about today. So we're going to talk about waste, and we want to let you know some numbers. So we globally have generated an estimated of 2.2 billion tons of solid waste annually. So we globally, in the whole world. And if we don't do anything about it, these numbers can double in 2050. And we understand that when we talk about these huge numbers and we talk about billions, it becomes very abstract. So it's very hard for me to understand even what a billion is. It's hard to grasp. So, but we just want to have an idea of how waste looks like in the world. So we want to have a global picture, and we are going to break it down. And we are going to talk about waste in Sweden, where we live, and later we're going to focus in one fraction. And when I say fraction, it's one stream of materials. So the total solid waste in Sweden, according to IVL, the Swedish Environmental Institute, in 2020, it was around 42 million tons of solid waste. From a third part of it, 14 million tons come from the construction industry. So we account construction and demolition, so new production and demolition as well. So we are talking about very, very big quantities of waste. And that's my where I come from. So I have seen that in real life. And this container that you see with the waste looks very nice, because that's not how it looks like. It looks like everything is in order, but it's actually a mess. Like it is. It's very complicated. It's very complex. But so we have this around 40 million tons of waste that comes from the construction industry, and that is around 1.4 tons per person a year. So just to have a perspective on that. And the interesting part here is that a tiny, tiny fraction goes to recycling or reusing, almost nothing to prevention. So 98% of wood waste goes to incineration. And as you know, in Stockholm, all the heating system is based on all the district heating is based on incineration from waste. So we are talking about non-hazardous wood waste from the construction industry. We are talking about waste that in most cases is certified, and we are talking about completely clean wood. So it's not treated, it's not impregnated, it's not doesn't have any toxics, right?
A bigger part of them, yes.
A bigger part of that.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's around 2 million tons of wood that goes directly to incineration. And incineration is not the best option. So incineration still causes and releases gases in the environment that are not the best. So why are we doing this? And what we should do?
So wood is a fundamental resource for our society because it is not only used for construction and furniture production, it's also used to producing packaging material and textile fabrics and bioplastics, as you know, and even battery.
How do you use wood in batteries?
So, now currently nearly all the commercial lithium-ion batteries are using graphite. Graphite can be synthesized from various plant polymers. For instance, lignin. It is a natural polymer in the wood fibers. And maybe you know Stora Enso. It's one of the biggest private forest owner, and they also produce a big amount of paper and pulp. From this, there's a residual stream called lignin. Then the extracted lignin use lignin to produce various products. One of them are battery material. And now they have these joint projects with Northbat to really produce batteries to power the electrification of our society. So without doubt, wood would play a vital role in the sustainable transition of the society. However, we cannot keep cutting trees. Instead, we need to extend the life of the trees we have already cut, and we need to conserve as much as possible of the original forest resources, because that can have other functions, not only produce for us to live on, and also capture greenhouse gas, maybe also restore biodiversity.
Yeah, exactly. So we come back to the picture we showed you in the beginning. And we ask you, what did you see? Because usually what we see is waste, right? When we see this mess of different materials, for us and for the industries, is waste. But our idea, and when we see this waste, we see behind what's before that, and it's the resources that we have in our forests. Like Jingqin said about biodiversity and resources that we can use for other things. So usually every time that I was looking at the fractions in the construction industry, it's like, this is not just a board that can go for incineration. It has been a tree, like it comes from that. We should take care of that. So we see resources, but at the same time, as Jingqin explained, we see innovation. We see a big way for new ideas and things that can be based on wood. So we are talking here about, is wood waste or is wood being wasted? And there are some examples that we wanted to show you. Why is wood more than just a combustible waste after we use it? So this picture comes from a complex of 20 houses in Denmark, and is a project that the Lendager group started. Everything you see here comes from construction waste. So for instance, the black panels that you see, the facade, those panels come from wood waste from construction projects. So the projects were demolished, and then the Lendager group went, picked them up, upcycled them, and made these 20 houses. So everything from the concrete, the window panels, the wood facade, everything is from recycled materials from previous construction projects. So we want to show you that it's possible, that there are many companies doing this now. Of course, it is a transition, but we need to see more than just the waste. We need to see what are the possibilities in what we now call waste. So Lendager Group is run by or created by Anders Lendager, and he is one of the pioneers in circularity in the construction industry, and he is very famous for doing these projects. So otherwise, these wood panels, for instance, we have gone to incineration in Denmark.
Yeah, I think that is an example how we can reuse wood in the original property or shape that prevents more waste that will be generated. But we also see the possibilities with new technology, because they are the enablers for us to be able to use resource better. For instance, this American company called Frost, they have developed a 3D printing process technology. With this, they can produce and use products from using waste sawdust and lignin. Those are just one of the type of their products. We also... Oh, sorry. Yeah, can we go back?
Yeah.
And go to next slide?
I think.
And the technology also enables us to replace fossil fuel for producing bioplastics. A Finnish company called UPM, they produce wood-based renewable biofuels like diesel and naphtha from wood chips that is also usually used for paper and pulp production. And then lignin, usually it's a residual stream from this production. So they use it to produce renewable biofuel. And later on, another company from US called Dow, they integrated the renewable biofuel to further produce plastics for packaging. And all those renewable biofuels or bioplastics basically come from waste chips or waste sawdust that could be used or could be just otherwise incinerated for heating, energy recovery. So we see the possibility that technology can enable us to do. Next slide. Yeah. So what is waste? Waste is a luxury term, originates from the take-make waste model, where resources are deemed infinite. However, any resource is not infinite, at least for the period when our demands keep increasing, but the regeneration takes too long to provide enough. So what we need a systematic change that can gradually decouple the economic growth from the consumption of resources. A system that has to be designed to eliminate waste and pollution, to circulate the products and materials in use as long as possible, and be able to regenerate our nature. So those are the principles proposed by Ellen MacArthur Foundation for the Circular Economy. I think the consensus is that resources are not infinite, but the use of resources can be infinite. We have to just improve the use efficiency, extend the lifetime of any resources that we have already mined from the nature. That is a concept we should implement in any business, our society, our development phase. in the future or from day one.
And now that we understand a little bit how circularity works and what circularity is, and the butterfly diagram that Jingqin presented, we want to talk about the circular design and when we design on infinite resources. So when we see resources at infinite, like we have all the resources in the world and we don't need to take care of them. So that's the way that we have been designing in a linear economy. So what happens even with the most sustainable ideas that we had before? So for instance, we know wind mills are a very sustainable way of harvesting energy, and there have been some controversy, but we cannot deny that this is a very sustainable option, right? The problem here is that the design of the wind turbine blades hasn't been designed with circularity in mind. So what happens is that here what you see in this picture, it's a graveyard for turbine blades that cannot be recycled. And this is the biggest graveyard in the US, in Wyoming. And these materials, that are mostly metal, of course, they go to landfills. So we are talking about here that even the most sustainable ideas need to be hand in hand with circular design, because otherwise this will happen. We will use resources for a sustainable purpose, but at the end of the day, they will go to landfills. So I think that is also not just the materials, but also the business model. And this is something we were discussing yesterday, that if the windmills will have, instead of being sell to companies, maybe if they have had a leasing model, it had been different, right?
Yes, yes. So we are talking about even for the sustainable products, you still have or may have problems after end use. So what is the best way to do it? Maybe you need to change your business model, not just selling the products, because products is resources. If you don't have resources anymore, where you get them? From your own products. If that is the value, why do you sell it to others, to your customers?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a similar case in the next slides.
So here is also about like the manufacturers should take care of the products at the end of their life.
Yeah.
And the next picture is a similar case, and we know solar panels are great, and even now more than ever, when we talk about energy and that energy that is harvested from the sun is very sustainable. But what happens with the solar panels at the end of their life?
Or broken.
Or where they go broken, you know, like what happens then? So actually I wanted to find a picture from this problematic in Africa. In many countries in Africa, they don't have the resources and they don't have the infrastructure to be able to recycle the materials or like to take care of them at the end of their lives, right? But searching, I found this picture, which it's even it shows the problematic even better, because this picture comes from a place in California where the solar panels are not being recycled. So they go to landfill. So if you think that in many countries in Africa you don't have the resources or the infrastructure, you understand that it's a different problem. But if you have the problem in the US, where they have the infrastructure, where they have the money, where they should have better laws there, it becomes a bigger problem, because those materials go to landfill. So it's the same here. Should we just sell the solar panels, or should we have a system that allows the manufacturers to take care of them? Because it's them who knows what is in the materials, right? And I would like to draw a parallel here when I was working in the construction industry. And it's that when we started working in these different projects to minimize waste, we actually understood that one of our key elements to succeed was to talk to the suppliers. So talk to our suppliers and tell us how are we going to recycle these materials later at the end of their use or when they go to waste, because you always have cutoffs, right? So for instance, there were new insulations coming into the market and we were trying to try them, and then it was very sustainable and it was very good. But then when we ask, how do we recycle them? Where do they go? Which fraction should we use? And they say like, yeah, it's a mix of different materials, so you should probably use it, send it to landfill. Then it's not the best option. So always start with the end in mind, and where is this material gonna go at the end of their life? And that's also, it's gonna give you an indication of if you are designing a product, like you can go back and use circular thinking and circular design.
Yeah. So circularity, it is challenging, as we all know. And for that to happen, we need not only the fresh mindset, we also need the infrastructure support, where the regulation adjustment is adopted, the capital investment is allocated, the practical tools and the guidance are in place. We would like to introduce a Nordic circular economy playbook, in which we see the strong ambition of Nordic countries, including Sweden, on circularity for urban development and business innovations. Though the established tools or toolkits in the book has been applied in the real business, you can find plenty examples there. And one of the tools called ecosystem partner identification. So that helps you identify the external partner to help you bridge the internal capacity and technology gap. There's also a tool called the funding requirement analysis that helps you to identify which funds that will be suitable for you to apply for your selected circular model, business model. So with all those toolkits, we probably do better when we want to implement circularity in our business or in our society.
And we would like to show you here an example of one of the most wasteful industries as well, the fashion industry. And they are, at least in the Nordic countries, they are taking big steps. So they are one of the industries that have understood the circular mindset, and they are trying to change. So fashion industry is the industry that has one of the biggest impact, is the fourth after food, construction and transportation. So around 5.8 million tons of textiles are discarded in Europe. And here you can see Renewcell is a Swedish company that is doing textile to textile recycling, and they sign a collaboration with the huge Inditex group, Zara, to work with circular materials. So Renewcell is, what they are doing is they are taking the cellulose for your jeans. So the jeans have to be at least 90% cotton. They take the cellulose, they extract it, and they make viscose fibers. And in the other picture, I think it's not very clear, but when you see this orange cloth, it's Gani. Gani is Danish sustainable fashion company, and they are working with Infinite Fibers. Infinite Fibers is a Finnish company that also works textile to textile, but they are expanding a little bit more, and they are taking the cellulose from different materials, so wood, hemp, and they are extracting that cellulose, and they are using it for viscose as well. So in the fashion industry, even when we know, or maybe because we know it's one of the most polluting industries, they are taking steps. And this is what we need to see in other industries as well. So just to understand that some big industries are now realizing this and are taking action. And why, now that we have described the problematic and we have described what circularity is and circular design, we want to tell you a little bit about us and what Xylo Sweden is. So actually, our name Xylo comes from the Greek xylo, and it means wood. So at our core is wood, and our logo is a wood that it has been cut off. So if you wonder, and we are a social enterprise. We are determined to redefine waste and as something of value and something that we can reuse in a circular economy between industries.
Yeah, so I would like to introduce our service scope because we are social enterprise to do projects and develop circular solutions for all the waste. Nowadays, yes, we are finding solutions for woods, and we are also in an official conversation to develop solutions for the vegetable wastes. And in our concept is that we providing services. For example, in ESG, we help beyond waste. We help business in a holistic way to achieve your sustainable goals. In our ESG reporting service, we are certified Global Reporting Initiative sustainability professionals. So we also help to embedding the European sustainability report standards that will require all the listed bigger company to do report by 2024 and small medium-sized company to report starting from 2026, latest 2028. So that means we have a responsibility to fulfill as a business. And then we also have these climate-focused services from a company to do disclosure and greenhouse gas emission accounting. We have experience in CDP, carbon disclosure projects scoring, and also science-based targeted reporting. We want to help a business become circular or transform into a circular model, but we also want to have give help to small, medium-sized companies to starting circularity from the day one, if it's possible. So we do training, we do advice on businesses, and we are, I think, Paula, she came from construction industry, so she has many years of experience in Nordic certification. It's called a Svanen for new buildings. And yes, we have quite a wide range of the services because we have strong partnerships, and we are very grateful for all the partnership that we had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the ones that are like orange, dark orange, these are our focus services, and the ones that are a little bit lighter or light pink, those are services that we do in partnership with other companies that can help us out. So our idea is that we don't want to just work ourselves in sustainable or circular projects, but also guide and help other companies to do the same. As you saw, like circular design has to be something that you implement if you have a startup, and if you're designing products, you have to do it from the beginning.
And we believe collaboration is a key to be able to become more circular or sustainable. That's why we are open for any kind of partnership as long as we are making the real impacts, not making something and create another problem. So that's why. And we do solutions for waste, not for producing benefits or profits, because we want to verify the different options for the waste, what we have, from the sustainability perspective to evaluate, and from the economic profit analysis, we see this is profitable and also sustainable, that this is a solution here. Who wants to adopt it? Who wants to use it to improve your business? That is an option we can provide. So
yes. So we hope you see, now that you see waste, you can see beyond waste and what has been waste before, and the possibilities that waste has. So hopefully you have now another idea when you look at this, and we are very thankful that we were able to present, and we want to thank you. And if you have any questions, you can just raise your hand. We are going to be here.
I have a question. So I want to ask everyone here, how many of you believe the society has to become circular?
Many hands.
Wow, amazing. I think that's the concept. If we have 10 apples, the first one will pick the best. The second one will pick the second best. And in the end, the last one has been taken by anyone. You don't know, maybe someone took it away. That's the resources well. That we see what we have, then we choose what we use. That's a future we have to realize from now on. The early we realize, the better, because we will prepare, we will become long-term resilient to any risk that would happen in future.
Yes.
So very glad to see so many people are believing.
Yes. Questions?
We can move the microphone around. But before, well, thank you so much. But maybe, yes, round of applause. Great presentation and very inspiring what you both do with your work and how you're driving your passion. So I'm just going to open maybe a question for you both that are behind Xylo, driving this initiative. And I have a question personally for both of you. Meanwhile, the rest think of another question for them. But the first one is, how did you personally started like this journey? Like, what was that you saw that sparked this interest of working in this field? But also, how do you reflect on it in terms of when you approach this? Because at this point, it's not like if we think is important. It's like, how do we implement this very important kind of work that you do?
Yes.
So yes, so
Yeah. I think like for me it was because I was working. Okay, maybe it is from before. I have always been interested in waste. I come from a developing country in Peru, and what we see in Peru as waste is a totally different thing than what we see in Sweden as waste. It's totally, at least two different worlds. So in Peru, like we are very resourceful, and waste is like something that you can really absolutely not use. So waste is waste is what you cannot use again. And I have seen very many memes about what waste is in Latin America. You know, if you have a T-shirt and you don't want to use a T-shirt again, you use it as a cloth, or you convert it in something. You upcycle everything, right? So this is a way that we do things. We upcycle things, and we don't, like, if you have a container from a shampoo or whatever, you will use it for something else. So I think that for me, that was always in my mind. And when I moved to Sweden and I was seeing, like, I remember my first cultural shock. I went to christening, a cruise, and there was a buffet. And people were just throwing the food in the container, in the waste container. And I didn't understand. I had just arrived, and so I didn't understand that why people were throwing. So I thought, like, maybe the food is bad, you know, like something happened. And then I realized that they were just throwing the food because they didn't want to eat it. They served themselves too much, and then they just throw the food. So that made a click in my head, like, this is not right, or like, why are we throwing food? Like in Peru, it's a sin to throw food. You will never throw food. So that was, for me, something that made click, and it's like, okay, this is a different reality, and this is a different perspective. And then when I started working in the construction industry, I realized how wasteful it is. And I'm ashamed that, the company I was working for is one of the most sustainable companies. They were approved for science-based targets. But even that, I am ashamed that we do this as a society, that we see resources as endless or infinite, and we don't take care, because in this buffet in the cruise, when you saw, maybe people saw food, but I saw everything that was behind, the energy for harvesting and everything that you use and transport. And so for me, it was always like that. It shouldn't be considered as something that you can just discard. And then when I realized that we are being wasteful because we are not prioritizing the right things, and we can make huge steps towards minimizing waste, I thought, like, maybe you just need someone to do this full time. Maybe companies don't have this resource, and they don't allocate the resources in a way that they give priority to the resources, but because other things are more important, like time. In the construction industry, time is king. So maybe that was what sparked my interest, and I thought, like, okay, I can do this, I can just quit my job and dedicate my time, full time, to do this. So I think like that was, for me, it was always an interest I had, and studying, I had a background in chemical engineering and then biology and then sustainability. I was always very much aware of the problematic. So probably that it was that, and I think that what we wanted to do today, coming back to your second question, it's that we don't want you to feel that we don't want you to see that this is just the negative part of like sustainability, and we talk about it is a part, yes, but there's a lot we can do, a lot that we can do as individuals, but also as a society at large. And what we are trying to do is we are trying to push the industries, and we are also trying to inspire people and industries to realize that it is possible to make changes. And it is possible for, as you said, Gabriela, it's not a question of if we believe in this, we need to act. And we can act personally, ourselves, being more careful with when our resources, but also as industries. We need to realize that we need to prioritize circularity and our resources.
Yeah. Okay, for me, so I always driven by the practical problem that I see in my real life. I studied environmental engineering because I saw the wastewater came from paper and pulp production, went to the hometown of my grandparents, and in summer the smell is so bad and you can't do anything with it. Then I said I would do environmental engineering. Then I work in water treatment industry, fantastic. We have new technology, we have everything, but we see the market needs also goes so crazily high that we see, okay, we have a customer, we have a market. But then when we really do it, we found the new technology applies very well, but for the production, we have other problems. We need to know the regulation, we need to know if it's sustainable, even if it's profitable, because it costs more, it has special needs for the material, you need to produce in the extreme conditions. How can we trade off? Do we really need it? I mean, every one of us have been here maybe considering or are doing business development, but we always doing marketing research. What is marketing research? We check the numbers. Every consulting company says, okay, the market by 2025, 50 will be double, triple. Who give these numbers? I believe they do a great job. They do modeling, they predict the trend, but is there really a need? I just dig into how they do marketing research. So they call the experts in the industry, ask, how do you think the market will be next year? And what's production capacity that you have in your company, in your organization or group? Then this guy probably say, oh, now we have a huge, for example, water industry. We have a project that is 10,000 tons per year. Projects are in planning. That this will be like, for example, in Uppsala. And then after half year, they call them again, say, oh, how do you see the industry marketing going? How is the capacity that you would estimate in the next year or future? And this expert says, oh, yeah, it's great. It will increase. We have a huge project that is maybe during the project's implementation or planning, they change the capacity, and they probably even change the location. They said, oh, we have a project that is 20,000 tons, and we will implement in Stockholm. Then this consultant company take the number. Okay, the first one in Uppsala, 10,000 tons, and this one's Stockholm, 20,000 1,000 tons, and after another half year, the project maybe it's done, and then during the process they may change to another place or change the capacity. Then they will see, okay, this is a third project for the company. So all those numbers, I believe they also do some error correction, but is there really needs? And as a business developer, we should really talk to customers to really find the problem. We cannot create a problem for ourselves to solve. That is something I really believe. Then why do I start a sustainability area, like diving in this area? Because I was taking course about climate change. What is the risk of climate change for every business? For example, for Stora Enso, they own the forest, they do paper pulp production, they even use their side stream to produce battery material from the lignin. What is the risk for them? Yes, it is a risk. If climate change, the weather condition become very bad, that means growing forest resources or growing the trees are really hard. Then can you provide yourself with enough resources? If you can't, that is a risk. You should start to plan now, right? You should conserve as much as possible. Then use the other available resources that we already mined for our society. So that is a concept worries me a lot. And then I want to do sustainability because I know most of the business or our society now in the linear economy, everyone wants to change, but it's so big, so huge, it's hard to change. And what we need is collaboration. But most of the patents are protected, they're confidential information. We are competing with each other. We don't know where we are heading. So that is a personal idealist concept, but I want to do is how much I can do, I will do from now on. At least I will not regret that I didn't do my best. So we are not making so much profits. Maybe we are living in a low condition, the low requirements for life, but we feel happy. What we need to live in enough resources. That's it. Yeah. And like I still remember my grandma. Maybe your grandma also do the same because I come from China. You come from Peru. My grandma always use a piece of clothes to wrap her money and wash them again. And my brother used to wear my old clothes, and my mom just she's a very good tailor. She can make the new clothes.
Yeah,
for
but
him.
that was a way. Like I inherited my brother's clothing.
Yeah, but
because
my brother always wear my old clothes. So that's a concept. We need to repair, remanufacture, reassemble, and then recycle. And there's two cycles. One is technical cycle. We should use, for example, metal materials. As long as possible, reuse it. Keep it running in the society, in the economy system. And the other one is biological material. We should design it. In the end, it will back into the nature, regenerate. We don't have any contaminants there. We need to design how we can extract them easily. And I came from academia. I know, like, we are creating nanomaterials. We are creating super fantastic catalysts. We integrate one element, two elements, three elements. Then the other research group doing. We have nano problem in the water. We have nanoparticle in the food. We are also fighting with each other. So I feel it's so complex. What we are heading, what do we want in life, in our society. So that's a personal interest led me to be here and want to do more things in the future.
So what from like two big things at least like take away from your reflections around this is the aspect of less competing and more collaboration among industries. So share more, like do more open source of like methods and how different industries can work to fix, not to fix, but maybe to like integrate the processes in more how do you say, regenerative ways of doing. And then one thing that you mentioned, Paula, is super important is the fact of this is not only something that should be a like an added process in how let me rephrase this, like an added process of just like it has to have its own importance, like their own job description. Like it should be like a model that someone needs to take care of this implementation of how this is adapted to different companies. Like it should have, how you're saying, an official job title, just a person to handle all this.
In in the construction industry, we were doing workshops with the site managers. So the question was like, how can we help you for you to recycle better? And they say avfallspolis. Avfallspolis is waste police. So waste, someone who is doing the police job in the waste. You know, that was a way of putting it. But I think like it is like that. We need, and we were discussing this as well, like circularity should be an umbrella or like part of this umbrella for businesses. All the businesses should understand that if you create a product, and there are so many products out there that are amazing, you need to just design them with circularity in mind. So this is our takeaway as well. Like we need to collaborate. Of course, collaboration is the most important thing, and one industry cannot do all the changes that we need. And that's why we also talk about cross collaboration between industries. This is absolutely needed, and also understand that circularity, and I think in Italy now, it's part of the curriculum, or in Portugal, children will learn about circularity. It has been so fundamental.
Yeah.
So I think that is very, very important.
One of our ambition is also we give a free education, if
Trainings.
it's possible, to
small
kids,
businesses.
like do some practice, help them to realize, because that's their future. It's not our future. Maybe it's our future, but it's
maybe
definitely their future. Right?
Hopefully.
Not sure yet, but anyway, that's their future. They should.
I have a quick question. My name is Amir, and you touched upon the new legislation that is coming around ESG for larger corporations and companies, and I think that when I look at it as a small business, it's really it's overwhelming and it's like almost impossible,
Yeah.
But what I understand that all these big companies that need to comply with that, they will soon start to demand it from their suppliers, us small businesses.
Yeah.
So my question to you is like, what would be the easiest way to start as a small business to approach to the compliance towards ESG?
Yeah, I can have some opinion. Yes, we have been thinking, because we wanna solve the real problem. So I was talking with one of the partner here. We want to create something. We focus on small and the medium-sized company because you have the needs and you have to comply with the regulation, but you probably don't have enough capital to support yourself or hire someone in your company to do it. Then our idea is we probably can have a program. We have you on board, a few of you. We provide group consultation. We can leverage on some public funding. We help you reduce the capital needs, and then we help you out. We also identify the common problem you would have in common. Then we figure out the solution by connecting with the experts in sustainability reporting. They are experienced from the bigger organization, but now facing the small company. What is their experience that they can share? How we collaborate together. We have experts group. We have small SME group. We become the coordinator, we become the bridger, we help you out, identify the common solution for all small, medium-sized business. And what we can do now, I think, as a small business, what we should think is, for example, if you have a product, what is the requirement for your products to be certified? Have you checked that out? And what you need, that is straightforward. You can start now. And what you need for the company, as a company, in the level to comply with the EU regulation.
So there are two different levels.
Yeah.
As a product, if you want to certify it or if you need to pass regulations, and then as a company, that you take a decision on the company, what are your goals and targets. So, and this is something we were discussing, and maybe we can take a discussion right afterwards, because this is what we want to do. We want to help the companies. Big companies have the money to pay for that, right? They can outsource consultants. But the problem is the smaller companies and the companies that are just starting up and creating products. So this is one of our main targets, because big companies, they can take care of themselves, you know? So maybe we can take a conversation afterwards.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, we missed
Very
some
good
time.
question.
But thank you so much. Very
Thank you, everyone.
illustrative. And time is up. We're going to come up for the next session. But a big applause to
Thank
both
you.
of you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for this. Will you stick around throughout the day? Maybe
Yes,
if people
yes, we will
want to
stay
approach
here
you.
the whole day.
Yes.
Yes.
Welcome you. Just talk with us, see what problem we can help you out.
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes. So thank you all. A quick leg stretcher if you want. We're starting in 5 minutes next with Global Shapers with the Impact Leadership Series. And on the topic that actually Paula mentioned of like a big issue is fashion industry and how can we create like a more circular processes in the fashion industry. So this is the next topic upcoming. So we start in 2-3 minutes. And just a quick, I want to mention also throughout the day we have business consultation as well. And I just want to introduce you to Naimul from Companion. Maybe Naimul.
I cannot hear anything.
You don't hear anything? Hello? Yes. Okay. We can do it. Oh, if you want Naimul or? Okay, before we start the next session. 2 minutes. Hopefully very challenging topic as well to discuss. And so as you know, we, going back, if you just joined to the day, we are hosting these sessions that are thought-provoking. We are trying to identify the different perspectives from different industries, how they're working. And then throughout the day, we have these panels of discussion, some workshops, but we're also offering business advice, business consulting with our partners, Companion and Alma, that they've been here throughout the different sessions of Impact Day. And it's important for us to have this like holistic approach through the whole day, because probably a lot of you have an idea of starting maybe your business, or you are an entrepreneur yourself, or are working with an SME, a small company. And in a way, maybe if you are here, is because you are searching for this like maybe spark of like maybe you can inspire or to network or to learn more about how you can maybe start your business or adapt more circular models to your work. But before we start with the session with Polina and Alma, I want to give 2 minutes to Naimul Abd from Companion, because he's going to be here during the day. He offers business advice. And yes, so I'll ask Naimul to just give a quick shout out to Companion.
Thank you, Gabriela. We really love the sessions that Impact Hub does. We are always here when you're doing the Impact Day. I think it's a great way for entrepreneurs, professionals to meet up and create new ideas together. I work with an organization called Companion. We are a national organization in 25 different places in Sweden, and we help professionals, entrepreneurs, start up businesses. And when we say businesses, our main focus is when 2 or more people combine their forces and create something together. So if you are forming a cooperative, a social impact, a circular venture, talk to us. We work with you at the very early stage. So it doesn't matter what stage of an idea you have. Some of you don't have a company. Some of you probably have multiple ideas. So it's a good process to start with us. Bring your ideas, sit down with us, and we can do one-on-one sessions with you. We also run acceleration programs, which are generally EU funded or funded by the relevant ecosystems where we are. So in Stockholm, Stockholm Start and Stockholm Business Regions are usually our partners. So if you're starting a business, I'm sitting here in the discovery room. Join us, and we can help you get started. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriela.
Thank you. Thank you, Naimul. So just so you know, Discovery Meeting Room is the one on the left side, right in the middle. So I think Naimul has the door open there. He's available for you if you want to have a consultation with him. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much. So upcoming Impact Leadership Series with Global Shapers. Give them a round of applause.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Super, super nice to see such a big audience. And welcome to Impact Leadership Series. And I think let's jump right into it. So please take your phones and go to menti.com, enter the code that you can see on the screen, and let's see if our associations, when we hear the word circularity, overlap with each other, or do we have completely different associations? I think it's just interesting to explore it before the session and follow up on that after session as well. And I give you 5 more seconds because we are tight on time. So resource conservation, smart reuse, going around nature, and forever. So kind of about the cyclical approach, I would say. A lot of words are about that. Biodegradable, also really good word. Closing loop, exactly. I think everyone is very much on spot. What do you think, Alma?
I love that I see the word smart there as well. Makes me feel happy.
Yeah. Super nice. I think this word cloud can continue and continue, but we have one more question to you. If you can maybe answer, why did you decide to come to this session? What are your expectations? It can be a very short answer. You don't need to write a full-on essay, but some keywords would be nice to hear for us before we start. Can I somehow see the answers on the... Okay. Curiosity, to learn a network, to get inspired, to learn more about different perspectives and approaches in circular economy, to be wowed. Okay,
Pressure is on.
Pressure is on, exactly. To support global shapers. Oh, that's sweet. Good. But I think really nice that we all feel here very curious to learn something new, to get to know new people, and just come with some new information in our minds when we leave this place. And if you have any expectations from this session, or if there is anything you want us to bring up, you're also free to bring it up, yeah. No expectations. Okay. What are the major challenges and how to tackle them when it comes to circularity? Really good point. I hope we will touch upon it.
There are some challenges, and we will definitely touch upon it, so very good.
To learn something new. I hope we can help you with that. How is H&M educating consumers about sustainability? This is for private talk with me. No, I'm joking. Yeah, but for people who don't know, I also work at H&M as a business controller. And Alma here is from Selby.
Yes.
But we will do a proper introduction in a moment. And to have an interesting discussions. Really, really nice. And yeah, let's start with a little bit of introduction. My name is Polina, and I'm here on behalf of Global Shapers Community, which is young leader, a non-profit organization by under World Economic Forum, and we just try to tackle the issues that we see in our society and propose different solutions and try to be the impact leaders in that sense. And I also work at the H&M as a business controller, so kind of with a little bit of background within the fashion and e-com industry here as well. And our guest here is Alma Rihala, who is an expert within retail and e-commerce industry overall, and she's currently working as a commercial lead at Sellpy, Sweden's largest e-commerce platform for pre-loved items. And I think very important is that one of the key messages that Alma and also Sellpy is channeling to its customers is that there is tremendous financial, social, and also environmental value in making sure unused clothing items are put to use again.
For sure. For sure.
And maybe to get to know our guest a bit better, we start with a wheel of tough questions.
Yes, let's do it. I've been dreading the whole day.
Okay, I'm starting to spin it. Who do you want to be, Alma?
Oh, that was a tough one from the beginning. I think I just want to be myself, but preferably the best version of myself. So constantly developing myself, learning new stuff, and never being like content where I am, but like always driving my life like. How do you say that? Framåt.
Yeah, like further.
Further, thank you so much. Yes, and also apparently I also want to be better at talking in English, so a point of development. But yes, a better version of myself, always developing, I think. Yeah.
Really nice, really nice. And maybe continuing also on this topic and starting introducing to yourself, who are you now and what do you do? Maybe there is something that you want to tell us about yourself.
Yes, so as Polina said, I'm working as the commercial lead for the Nordics at Sellpy today. And that basically means that I'm taking care of our Nordic markets. So that's Sweden, Finland, and Denmark, for now at least. And Sweden is, of course, our biggest market, and it's our home market. So that's where Sellpy's story began. And I'm in charge of the Nordic team. So I'm heading up the team, and I'm also in charge of our P&L. So basically taking care of our budgeting, sales, new customer acquisition, marketing, customer offer, and so forth. So a lot of good stuff on my table. And I mean, it's a scale up, so it's both very strategic, but also very hands-on when needed. So I think it's a good combination. So that's where I'm at right now, at least.
Mm-hmm. And how did you come to this moment that you decided to join Sellpy? What was the turning point or some of the points that made you join the company? What were you interested about in it?
I mean, I've been working with an e-commerce for almost 10 years now, so it's been a while, and I started at Sellpy for a couple of years ago, 1.5 years ago to be exact. So back in 2021, and this was quite like after the pandemic and so forth, and I had turned 30, and I mean, I guess I had some sort of a midlife crisis and was kind of like thinking what would be my next move, and I had been working at this other e-commerce company called Bangerhead as their head of brand, and I'd been working with retail for many, many years, and I mean, I was kind of like, I was very happy with my job. I wasn't like actively searching for anything either, but then Sellpy kind of reached out, and they had this role, and it was like a new role in the company, so no one had ever had it before, and it sounded very interesting, and it felt like an opportunity to really make an impact, make a change, create something from the scratch. And I kind of had this itch, like, going from the pandemic and kind of like turning 30 and feeling like, okay, but maybe I want to try something else and not just like your traditional retail of newly produced items. So that was like the thing that kind of like turned me to Sellpy, and then I started there, and it has been very, very good. It has been what I thought of it would be, but also even more. So I'm very happy with the status right now.
Yeah. And going more on the deep end of the questions, is there any way how the company changed you or maybe affected how you view the circularity or the retail industry or in any of those contexts, basically?
Not necessarily like changed me as a person, but definitely made me more aware of the industry, the challenges that we have, and also, of course, the responsibility, but also the opportunities that we have. So I think that's been a huge thing. And of course, like working in an impact business is also like, for me on a personal level, it's nice to go to work and feel you're really doing something meaningful. I mean, every day is basically a chance for you to make a change. So that's been a huge thing for me as well, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And what is your perception of circularity in fashion? What would you say is the definition of circularity in fashion?
We actually saw some very good words here on Mentimeter, and I guess everything goes into circularity. I guess secondhand is maybe the most obvious circular initiative that there is. But then there's like a lot of initiatives, like, for example, creating new types of fiber, like Circulose is a new type of fiber that you could use to make fashion industry and clothing industry more sustainable. I think also a very interesting trend is like upcycling clothes. It's also very democratic. People are like doing it like both on fashion weeks in Paris. We have, for example, a Swedish brand that's called Hodakova, who are even sourcing items from Sellpy and then upcycling them into something completely different, so very haute couture. But then we also can see these upcycling initiatives from individuals. So that's basically people on TikTok showing how they completely changed a piece of clothing to something completely different. So that's been also very fun to see that people are very creative when it comes to circularity, not only organizations and companies, but also on an individual level.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's really nice that it becomes like bigger and bigger topic, both from a company's perspective as well as on individual side, because I think one cannot work without another, and basically everyone should contribute to that. So I think it's really nice to see that.
And it's becoming more and more mainstream. Like for a couple of years ago, secondhand was still kind of like an underground thing for most people, and we can see that, for example, if we're thinking about Gen Z, I mean, many of them really prefer secondhand rather than newly produced items when it comes to clothing. So, I mean, there's some hope, at least, for circularity, I would say.
Yeah, and I would say even many fashion brands, they produce some clothes that are inspired by vintage clothes or used clothes, like kind of giving this like used feeling to not used things. Yeah, I agree with that as well. Can you tell us a bit more maybe about the initiatives that you drive in Sellpy specifically, and that maybe contribute to the circular economy development or something like that?
I would say Sellpy in itself is kind of like a circular economy initiative in that sense that back when Sellpy started in 2014, it was a very, very unique service, and I still think it is. There is not really like other competitors that have the same level of convenience, for example, when it comes to the actual service, so the selling service. And then, of course, just like proving that you can do this in a large scale and you can make it profitable is also something that I think Sellpy has really done to show the others that there is a possibility to a commercially viable circular business model. So I would say the whole of Sellpy is kind of like an experiment that worked out.
And I wanted also to ask, what are Sellpy's current challenges when it comes to the creation of this like circular business model?
I mean, one obvious challenge is, of course, I mean, we are handling unique items, and there are millions of them. So, for example, on our website, sellpy.se or sellpy.com, whichever you prefer, today there are more than 1 million unique items. So, I mean, just the operations of handling 1 million unique items, you can't put too much time and effort on each item. So basically using technology, digital infrastructure to really make sure that we are streamlining our operations so that we can be effective when handling the items. And then, of course, when you have a website with 1 million items, like how do we guide our customers through that journey? I mean, you kind of like need to take them by their hand and show them what they want. So a lot of like digital solutions, AI, how can we personalize the shopping experience? I would say those are the main challenges. Scaling up, doing this in big volumes, and then of course guiding the customer in a very, very personalized manner.
Yeah. That's for sure very challenging, I think, also considering the rapid growth of the company.
Yes.
But it's also super nice because it just shows how huge the potential within the industry there is, and that the demand is there and the customer is there. It's more about how to create the customer journey.
Exactly. Both the buying and the selling customers are there. And I mean, if you've been using Sellpy, you know that we have sometimes had quite long handling times, for example. And that's also kind of like a symbol of how well it's going, how much of demand there is. So it's been very fun to see that people are, the demand for secondhand is growing continuously. And also, of course, we need to scale up our operations to match that demand. And that's always kind of like a luxury problem to have, I guess. But we're working on it and building both digital and physical infrastructure to take care of it.
And what are some of the company's future plans, maybe some new initiatives? If you can elaborate on that a bit.
Basically, our plan is to keep expanding to other markets in Europe as well. So basically, right now you can order from Sellpy to all of the European Union countries. And then we want to expand the selling service to even more countries. So right now the selling service is available in 7 countries, I think. So expanding that, and then of course making the shopping experience even more personalized, even better, guiding our customers even more, and making sure that we have both the digital and the physical infrastructure to really take care of our customers and help them shop more sustainably, I would say. Yeah.
I think really fascinating, and I'm sure Sellpy will succeed in that. I think brilliant idea. I use Sellpy myself a lot. I think it's amazing. If you haven't done it, I definitely recommend.
Yeah. Word of warning, it's quite addictive. So I'm there every night just scrolling through and like adding favorites. So it's a lot of fun as well.
Yeah, and if we scale up from the company's level to the industry itself, how do you see the future of fashion, e-com industry? What challenges the industry is facing, and what role the circularity will play in the industry's development? How do you think?
I think circularity actually will play a big role in the development of the industry. We can see that demand is really growing. Even more traditional actors who have previously been selling only newly produced items are having different kinds of second-hand initiatives, trying out more circular business models, adding that to their portfolio of services, basically. So I think that is something that will develop. I also think that we will have a lot more other companies, basically, with different types of mending initiatives, second-hand initiatives, and so forth. So this is definitely something that will grow in both demand and the supply, I think. And then another interesting part of it is, of course, the digitalization of it all. So basically, how can we use the metaverse, for example, to offer very unique items? For example, it could be NFTs instead of actual pieces of clothing, so that could also be a more sustainable way of wearing an item once. Maybe you just buy a skin and you have that in your social media and you don't even wear it for reals. So a lot of very interesting kind of sci-fi initiatives are out there as well, and it will be very interesting to see what happens during the upcoming years.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think companies should generally engage in circular economy development activities? Why should it be a topic? Because I think we all kind of feel that it should be a topic, but what should be the motivation in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, I guess companies, if we're thinking about the fashion industry, and don't quote me on this, I didn't check the numbers, but I think around 10% of our total carbon emissions come from fashion industry. And in that, the companies do have a huge responsibility, of course, to take care of it, but also a huge opportunity. As I said, we can see that the demand for secondhand is really growing. And as the demand grows, of course, kind of your reasoning as a company to offer that to your customers as well will be growing. So I think there's a huge commercial opportunity that many companies are not, haven't taken any action on yet, at least. So I think both responsibility-wise, but also opportunity-wise, it's something that you should definitely research more, understand more, and offer to your customers.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think customers or consumers should do to align with the companies?
Vote with your feet, I guess. Try to yourselves find ways of shopping more circular items. I think many people feel that it's hard to find these perfect second-hand items. They don't really know where to start, and I guess there's quite of a big say-do gap. So basically people say that it's important to shop sustainably, it's important to shop circular items, but then they don't really do it, and there's multiple reasons. We do a lot of customer research at Sellpy. I even call one customer each week and just ask what they think and what do they find as hurdles for shopping secondhand. And many people say that it's so hard to find the item for me when you have millions of unique items. So I think that's something that many of us need to kind of explore and find our ways to find those items. So kind of as a customer, check if you can find the item secondhand first, because almost everything has already been produced. And if you don't find it secondhand, be my guest and buy it newly produced, but most certainly you will be able to find it secondhand. So kind of show the companies that there is a demand. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Walk the walk, I guess.
Yeah. And you kind of started answering that, but I think the summing up question for us could be, what advice would you give to individuals and organizations when it comes to using fashion for good?
Yeah. Feedback companies, show that there is an actual demand. I think companies are oftentimes and need to be willing to listen to their companies. As I said, as a Sellpy, we're very, very obsessed by our customers, so we're just more than happy to get feedback. So whatever we can do to make the circular business model more approachable for you guys as customers is worth everything for us. So don't be shy to feedback the companies, and also vote with your feet and your wallet, basically. Mm-hmm. And of course, for the companies, just listen to the customers. There is a huge demand for this, and no one's really taking any action on the opportunity. So there is a lot commercial potential to be tapped into, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much, Alma. I think we got to know a lot of new things, and it was so nice to get to know Sellpy and you a bit closer. Yeah. But now it will be the time for discussion, and I think that the overarching topic that we all can spend some time discussing can be, how could one create a circular business model? And we are still on Wheel of Tough questions on the screen, but it's time to discuss. And here is the question itself. So if you can take some time to divide yourself into pairs or small groups just to discuss this topic, and then let's share our findings with each other. Oh? Thank you so much. Is it turned off? No, I think I'm still on. Good. I can hear that the majority of you stopped with the discussions, but now I think it would be really nice to start with some Q&A session to our guests, or maybe some points of consideration that you raised during the discussion. Anything is welcome that you want to discuss with our guest and with us. Oh, yes.
Should I take the microphone?
Yes.
Yes. So I have a question, like not about what we discussed now, because I was thinking about that before when you were talking, and maybe I would like to start with that question, and is that I have used LP since they were born, and I really enjoy the service, but. So I'm someone who has been using secondhand since I was little.
Yeah.
So, and even like I was inheriting my brother's or my sister's clothing. So secondhand clothes for me is something that I really like and value. And I think that's how you have to use the resources. But what will you say? So for me, it's very natural to use LP or to use other secondhand shops. I always try to find that as an option, like you said. First, if I don't find it secondhand, then I will buy it new. But what will you say to people that don't like the concept of secondhand because it can be dirty or it belongs to someone else and it's so close to the skin? Because I have friends who they just have the idea of secondhand as something that, dirty.
There's like a yuck factor to secondhand.
What would you say to them?
And that's something that we're actually very aware of, and we know that we have some customers that say that, like, as a concern, that I don't find it like fresh enough somehow. At Sellpy, we do quality assure of all of the items that we take in, so we actually do have like staff who goes through each item, sees how it looks like, we smell them, we do like a lot of just checkups on the items so that we can guarantee that they're nice enough to be sold. And then we also do give the condition in the description. So for example, we have some clothes that are like basically new. So you as a customer, even though you might find secondhand maybe a bit unfresh, you might try something like that first. I think you would also be positively surprised by the actual Sellpy experience, because it kind of like you get like this nice package home and everything is very neatly packed, and it's not maybe that kind of like that thought you have in your head when it comes to secondhand. So I would say like try the ones that have like the good condition, and then you kind of like can move further and find more like items that are maybe a bit more worn and see what you find acceptable for you. But I think it's important to at least try it, and I would say that the prices are still quite accessible for secondhand, so try it once and see what you think. I mean, and it's clothes, so you can always wash them, you know. So I think that's also interesting. And of course for us, like as a service, maybe we should have like a washing service in the future, or partner up with another company who does initiatives like that. So that's also something that we're looking into, but no decisions have been taken.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for a great introduction here. Very interesting conversation. We also had a very interesting discussion over here. Something that I'm a little bit curious about is there's this concept of moral discounting. So by doing something good, people tend to feel like they can kind of use that moral behavior as a discount to maybe do other things that aren't as good. And so, for example, I'm wondering how many people who actually sell clothes through Sellpy come back to buy clothes, or if they just use it as a moral discount to like go out and buy new
Even more
clothes.
newly produced
So I'm emptying my wardrobe, selling it all through Sellpy.
Yeah.
So now I can just like fill it back up again, you know?
Yeah, I think that is a factor for someone, and I guess, I mean, it's still better that you sell the clothes via Sellpy rather than you just throw them away, if that would be the other option. But I think that's absolutely a factor that plays into it. That's nothing that we can affect in that sense, but we do have quite a lot of overlapping between our buying and our selling customers, and we do have a communication with our selling customers to kind of like try to tempt them to try the buying service as well. I can't really comment on exact figures, but there is quite a big of an overlap. And of course, we do have customers who only buy clothes, and we do have customers who only sell via Sellpy. So that's a fact. And of course, I mean, in the bigger scale of things, I think we just need to talk more about secondhand, work with what you kind of like call like a yuck factor, kind of like try to make that threshold a bit lower, and then just make sure that secondhand becomes more and more of a mainstream alternative for more and more people.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, thank you for an interesting talk. I'm wondering a little bit about what's not sold. What do you have an issue there, or like, can you see that there are items of a specific type, or do you see any patterns in what doesn't get sold, and how big is that volume?
I mean, we do have some rules, of course. I mean, you can't sell certain items to us because we won't be able to sell them. I mean, it could be like weapons, for example. We would obviously not try to sell those on our website. But otherwise, we do take in everything that's like clean and works, and you can fit it into a Sellpy bag, basically. And then it's up to the people in the quality assurement who actually like go through the item and check if it's like viable to be sold. And if they're not, it could be that they're too defected. Maybe they have some other like a certain smell, or it could be whatever. Then they're kind of like moved to the side, and then we contact the customer and we say that we are not going to try to sell these. That's our instruction to you. If you still want to try, we can try to sell these, but we don't think that you will be able to sell them. We can donate them, we can recycle them, or we can send them back to you. So the customer always has a choice, basically. I wouldn't say that the share is huge that we actually like sort away. And then of the items that we try to sell, a very, very, very small part is not actually sold, and then it's donated or sent back to the customer. So I would say that the share is, luckily enough, quite small that we are not able to sell. And unfortunately, I think you also asked like is there a certain category or something, but I don't have that information on me right now, but I can get back to you at least. More questions? Yeah.
Now that the microphone works. Have you ever considered having physical stores?
We've done some experiments with pop-ups, for example. We had one in Mall of Scandinavia for a few years ago, and now we just experimented with a pop-up in Germany at this big shopping mall called Alexa in Berlin. And the response has actually been super, super good. And I think it goes a bit together with your question as well. Like when people actually see the items in real life, they can also kind of like verify that, okay, this wasn't too bad. It's actually fresh. It doesn't smell weird. It looks good. People wouldn't even know that it's secondhand. So that's something that we think we are going to continue with, at least in a pop-up format. And then if there would be like a physical store in the future, no decisions there. So we're doing the online store for now, but with some pop-ups coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I have a question related to that. So in these pop-up experiments, have you developed some service where you can solve the problem with sold clothes that they are not updated in the app, for example? So could it be possible that you sell the item 2 times, or is it on the platform
and in the pop-up at the same time?
No,
Or
if we do a pop-up,
you take it off the platform.
exactly, then it's in the pop-up basically. So we really do not want to take any risks in selling one item two times. I mean, it's always a struggle when you sell unique items. So we don't take any risks there, and I guess that's also something that's a challenge when it comes to physical stores in general for someone like us with the business model that we have with unique items. So
And are you working on these kind of solutions, or?
not actively right now. We have some discussions about the topic, but we're not working on it actively right now.
Thank you.
Do we have any more questions from the audience? Something about the circular business models per se, or about Salpi?
I can take another one. I'm not holding like the microphone. No, but I have a question for you, if that's okay.
We can try.
No, since you represent H&M, and H&M, I don't know how big of an owner you are in Salpi. Is it
Majority stakeholder?
majority? So you own this company and you've invested in their growth. But what do you see as representative of H&M? What have you learned from Salpi, or what do you think is the trajectory for H&M towards circularity?
I don't really know actually how much can I tell, because I think it's quite strict with the big companies in terms of like how much you can say on behalf of the company. So I'm speaking from my personal perspective and as an employee and what I feel about the company's direction. And I feel that it is a big focus actually. And of course it is very tough. It is like taking a casino and saying like, okay, what is social responsibility that it's a fast fashion company, it's a retailer. And the idea is to, like, our value proposition is to produce fashionable items at the best possible quality and lowest cost in a sustainable way. So it is a part of the proposition, but like how all of the parameters come together, it's another question, like, okay, what sacrifices should you take and what is the key goal, etc. But I think in general it is quite a big focus, and having majority stakeholder, majorities, bigger part of shares in Salpi is also one of the maybe ways to do that, and supporting companies like this and really trying to diversify the whole H&M Group's portfolio with companies that operate in a more sustainable way for experience sharing purposes, also just like to diminishing maybe or like lowering the impact on the planet. I think it's like one way of that, but also trying to reinvent operations in itself is another big topic for us. This is how I feel. Maybe our sustainability officer doesn't feel like this. I don't know. But yeah, this is how I feel, that it is a big focus. Oh?
More questions?
Yeah.
It's a bit unrelated to what we were talking about just right now, but as it come out... Can you hear me now? Yes. So it's a bit unrelated to what we were saying now, but as we were discussing in the small discussion moment now, we know that fashion have a little problem with like inclusivity and being sort of gathered to a marginalized community of like more rich or skinny persons. So I wonder if there is any way in which your company is trying to include a variety of sizes, because she asked about the ick factor, like how people feel about buying secondhand. But for much people, including myself or other plus size people, it's actually very hard to find secondhand that it's fitted. As we were discussing right now, there is a lot of situations where people who is not plus size buy the clothes and then size them down. So they stitch them to fit better. So I wonder if, in your opinion, there is a solution to this problem. Like how can secondhand both include more plus size people and also not become like fascist in saying no, skinny people cannot buy those stuff because those are only for the plus size. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I hear you, and I think like one big challenge for us is that we don't really have like a purchasing team, for example. So we have quite little control over the assortment that we actually get in, because we're always like super reliable of our sellers. If we don't have any sellers, we have nothing to sell. We have nothing. So it doesn't help if we have a lot of buyers if we don't have enough of sellers. So it's a very interesting business model in that sense that we have customers on both ends. And I mean, for now we haven't done like any. I mean, we basically just gotten in the assortment that we've gotten in, so we haven't done any initiatives on like, right now we are interested in these brands or these sizes, and that may be a future development that we actually reach out to our customers in a more proactive way, that we ask for certain things. And then, as you said, like representation is important in fashion industry and in general, and of course, even for secondhand. So just basically in our communication, showing different sizes, once again, guiding our customers to actually find the sizes, because we do carry a lot. Like we have 1 million items on our site. So reasonably enough, there should be all sizes as well. But I think it's also a question of finding the right sizes for you. And that's something that we need to be even better at, find even more digital solutions to really guide and personalize the shopping experience. I think like representation, using digital solutions to really guide your customer, and then maybe also try to take more control of the actual assortment and try to get in different sizes, different looks, different brands could be the next step, not only for us, but for other second-hand players as well.
It's not a direct question to you, but maybe open a little bit more the discussion about this with sizes, and is that you are not a retailer, you're not making the clothes, but in the fashion industry, every brand, they have their own sizes, yes. And that's a huge problem, because I have tried, so I buy secondhand a lot, and for me it's like, okay, I know I'm medium, for instance, right, or I'm 38, so I will go for those sizes, but I have noticed that when I buy clothing from Sellpy, because I just see the item, I don't look much at the label, or like I try to focus on the good quality that I see in the pictures. But I have often bought clothes that I would think they will fit me because it's a size M or 38, and they're extremely tiny. Yeah. It's like 34. Yeah. And it's like, so what am I? I'm not. If I am like 38 and this clothes don't fit me and it's like for 34, what should I look for, right? Yeah. And this is the problem with like fashion in general, that also marginalize bigger sizes, because if you focus on like a size medium is a 34, then what is a size small? You know, like you see that problematic that the fashion industry is trying to maybe every brand, they want to have their own sizing because they found it more fitted, but then for the customer, it becomes a problem. And even a bigger problem for you, I guess, as you are not the owners of, you have so many brands and you work with so many retailers that they just, I mean, the customers send the clothes to you, but then how do you manage the sizing? It's because of the size in the label, right? So you cannot...
Exactly. If the what do you call it? Like the washing tag. If the tag says that this is a size medium, we will put in the information. This is a size medium. Yeah. It's very hard for us to know which size an item is, and sometimes it can also be that we get in items that are they don't even have like any sizing left because someone cut off the tag, and then we kind of like need to
assume
that I think this could be a medium because everything else in this bag was medium and it kind of looks like a medium. We've done some measures here already to kind of like make it easier for the customers to find stuff. So for example, we take different measurements. So for example, if you're buying pants, we may say that this is size medium, but then we also give the actual like this, what do you call it, the circumflex, do you call it, like the around the waist in centimeters, so that you can at least like have some sort of a measurement that's a bit more comparable. So that's something that we're already doing. But for us, like every time we add like a data point into the product description, that takes time, and that's, I mean, time is money in this sense. So that's always a challenge for us to kind of like find the data points that are the most important for our customers and make that in an effective way. Another way could be that we have like this mannequin, these dolls that we're using and putting the clothes on more sizes. We could be more transparent about the sizes that the mannequins have, so that people can also see like kind of like the fit of the item on the actual doll. So these are actually initiatives that we're talking about. Some of them might be put into implementation. I'm not, unfortunately, the expert on these parts. Is our quality team, but that's something that we get a lot of feedback on, and I think you have a really good point there. And I mean, it kind of like makes the life a bit harder for us retailers and secondhand actors. So I guess some sort of a legislation, some point in the future would be great. Just harmonize all the sizes so that we don't have to wonder. But that's unfortunately not up to us in that sense. So
I think like when same as with the adapters. I think it's the same with the adapters in the iPhone or Samsung. You need to have a unified or standardized measurement, because then you know that. Because for me, it's like if I buy something from Selfie or new and I don't know the brand, or even like I know the brand, I know there is one brand that I love and I always buy from them, but I know that they also change their sizing. So even they change their sizing time to time, which makes it very hard, because then I have to send it back. And for me, I'm in the sustainability field. I don't want to send it back, because for me it's like CO2 emissions in my conscience. So the sending back, it's transport that I don't want to do. So it's much easier if we could have a legislation where it says like all the sizing have to be standardized, so we can avoid these misunderstandings. Because if every fashion brand has their own sizing and can be flexible and change it time to time, then it makes it very hard, and you will send back clothing because they don't fit you, and because you assume that you are something and you measure yourself and then you get something and it's not what you thought.
Exactly.
So I think legislation again, like it's something like it's super important. So like we can have standardized sizing, and then it would probably be more fair as well. Yeah.
I think with the standardized sizing, sorry if I can add for a second, but like even within one brand and within the same collection, there is such thing. I think in Swedish it's called stuk. So like how you make something like happen, and it really depends on the pattern maker, how it is all like done. So like even you can take pants that are produced by the same team basically in one company, and both of them are going to be size 38, but one is going to feel super tight, another is going to feel super big. It can be both because of how it is like made like in real life, like from designing to actually making it, and also because of the fit, because we have so different body shapes that like one brand focuses more on the waistline, another on the, or maybe more pear shapes. So like all of those things matter as well. But I also wanted to say that I think it's like really interesting, because for some brands I think it is a value proposition to put smaller sizes, like, and it makes you happy that I'm wearing small size, not M size, which is like it's
another discussion.
outrageous to think about it. But big point. Sorry, there was one more question that.
I was just wondering, as an online retailer, what do you think of the economic viability of delivering, items? So you guys provide the bag, you collect the clothes, and then you get it shipped to your warehouse, perhaps, and get it arranged, and there is a lot of utility in it, or basically like electricity, energy, carbon footprints, and all that. So how do you actually account for the economic viability of delivery and all the even labor cost? And about sizing, I always think that the Greek toga wraps are the way to go to conquer, to overcome any sizing problems. You just take a piece of cloth and just wrap it. But so the economic viability, because when I look at the circular business model, it's just, I can't account for, okay, you get a package, you get a plastic bag, right, biodegradable, good, you deliver it, and then, we have this EU regulation on the 30 days return policy and all that. And as I say, sizes, it's kind of like complicated, the clothes string, cotton, depending on whatever materials there are. So how do we then account for the carbon footprint? Is there a way to actually encourage consumers to actually amalgamate or consolidate their orders? Or do you think that there needs to be another channel where people actually kind of consolidate orders, or and kind of decrease the carbon footprints. We're talking about transportation. Yes, there are bike companies that are looking at electrifying things. I mean, electricity. There are different various ways of producing them, but so what do we do to account for economic viability of carbon footprints? Basically, that's the question. Yeah.
Good question. I mean, when it comes to transport in the fashion industry, it's actually the share of the actual transport is quite small if we compare it to the emissions that are caused by actually producing the items. So, of course, transport is not as big of a factor, but it's obviously a factor. And for us, especially working within secondhand, it's one of our biggest emissions in that sense. Of course, we're saving emissions in the sense that we're not selling newly produced items, but we are still producing emissions. So we're trying to make as sustainable choices during each step of the way. As you mentioned, returns is something that have been talked about a lot during the last years, especially when it comes to e-commerce and fashion. Sizes are a big part of why people are returning items, of course. So, I mean, that's something that we all, not only as second-hand actors, but other e-commerce players need to solve somehow. We have some initiatives around this. So, for example, we have a service that's called Selfie Circle. I don't know if you know about it. But it's basically us giving our customers a C2C opportunity to sell their clothes forward to someone else. So it could be you buying a jacket from Selfie. It says size medium, but it feels like size extra small, unfortunately. And then you have the carbon emission consciousness and you don't want to send it back to us. Then you just put it up for sale at Selfie again. So basically using the same images, maybe something happened with the jacket. It got like a little stain on the sleeve. You add that into the description and then you can sell it directly to the other customer. So when another customer buys that item, you will send that directly to that customer. So we're at least like having one step less in the transport chain by actually allowing our customers to send items to each other. So that's like, for example, one initiative that we're doing. Maybe it could be possible for the actors that are selling newly produced items as well. I don't know, but I think it's something that we all need to experiment around a lot more during the upcoming years.
Super good. I think we had really nice discussions, and maybe we didn't look at the time that much, but it was really nice to speak to you, Alma. And thank you, everyone, so much for the questions. I think really, really nice discussions and really, really nice and informative guests we had today.
Thank you for having me.
Let's give a round of applause to Alma.
This is right. Yes. Thank you so much, both. Really engaging and interesting conversations. I'm like, thank you. I mean, for your time and you guys for your engagement and for just like adding more value to the conversation about this topic. Nice. But yes, of course, if you stay around for a little bit more, if you want to, if you have further questions, feel free to. Yeah, to stick around. We have a lunch break now. So if you guys are hungry, just a little bit of background of the lunch boxes that we serve here. So we have a collaboration with Xylo. They work with community kitchens and people from migrant backgrounds that get to share their culture through food. So we have every week. So the floor is yours, Alexandra. So you're going to be moderating.
Can you do that again, please?
I
didn't tell you were on. Now you're on.
Now I'm on. Okay. Welcome everyone again. Continuation with Impact Day for the day, our April session. Thank you for staying for the day. Those that have been throughout the whole morning with the other conversations, but also now that we are landing to our last conversation with Carros Network, who is a group of young, passionate people that are uplifting important conversations for the future generations about future jobs, upcoming challenges, and how they can create an impact, collaborating, and yes. So we're very excited that they are now part of like our Impact Hub ecosystem and world. So we have Alexandra and Julia, but I'll leave the floor to you guys so you can carry on the conversation and lead it. And to everyone, thank you and hope you enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm thinking, Julia, you can begin. And then I can tell them about Carus. But begin, who are you, Julia?
Yeah, so I'm a fourth-year master's student at Linköping University. So I graduated last year at the environmental science program, and now I'm doing my master's in science for sustainable development.
Yes, and it's so fun to be here. So I'm from Carus, and I'm one of the founders of Carus Network. And what we want to do is that we want to prepare youths for the future. And we have done this soon for 6 years. And how we do it is that we organize similar things like lectures and workshops in future-related topics every month. And why we focus on youth was when I went to high school, we noticed this gap that there is not really a platform for youth to gather and find meaningful connection. And that's what we're trying to do for the past 6 years, which is super fun. And what we want to do here today is to actually bring up the youth perspective in these questions, because I don't think anyone have missed Greta Thunberg, that young people are very in front with these questions. And a short about me, I'm a lawyer. I recently graduated, and now I work with sustainability, or ESG, which is more the financial term for sustainability, at PwC. So I work very broadly with ESG and sustainability, but today I want to focus on being the voice for young people. And I also want to say we have some questions we want to discuss, but what we would love is also to get your questions and like what do you wonder from the youth.
Yeah. Such an important work, I think.
Yeah. But let us start a bit. So we were just wanting to start with like how as young people can play a role in promoting circularity in our communities. So Julia, what do you think?
Well, I certainly think that youth are the biggest advocates right now for sustainability. There's a clear engagement. There's a valuing in sustainability that we really need to embrace. And therefore, I really think that youth are right now the leaders that really can show the way further for stakeholders and policymakers, even citizens.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that statement. Like one thing I've noticed, I don't know, but many young people, they're like super passionate, especially when it comes to sustainability. And I think in that way, we can be a part of like driving it forward. And like actually my boss at PwC says like re-energize communities with our new perspectives on it. But then from my understanding at least is that what we need back from the communities is maybe like the structure and how to implement it, like the funding, like all of these things we may have not learned yet, even though we're super engaged in the topic.
Yeah, and there's maybe really this gap where there's a lot of willing and a lot of driving force, but I don't really think that it's not always taken care of as much as it should be. So that the work could improve in that way.
And I totally agree with that. Like when we started Carus, I was 18 and my friend was 16, 17. And it was super fun, but we did so many mistakes, which is obvious. We are very young. But what we got help from SEB, the bank. And that was such a enabler we had so much energy, we had so many ideas, but to get some structure from something more established. And this was just for Carus, but I think that is like a way forward for many ideas, like letting the young people come there to talk about their ideas, how they can move forward, but then we can all help them to actually channelize it to something more concrete and actionable. So, and like I said,
please feel free to ask questions as well.
I can ask one.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think? Microphone, please. Oh, sure. You want me to turn it on some way? Oh, yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. What do you think will be the biggest change in the sustainability? Like, how can young people move it more forward? Like, what kind of way does established companies and older people, if that's what we need? I mean, I think we need. What do they have to change in society so we can have a more clear way to move the sustainability to the right way? Is it more policy questions, or is it more?
I think what we need to do is like engage the young people, and as you know, sustainability is super broad. So it's everything from, like you said, policies, but more to like company culture, to actually designing the products. Like, for example, in policies, I think we should have a clearer way to engage young people in these discussions, because we obviously have a lot of opinions. In companies, we already see that young people, we want to work with sustainable companies. I don't think that comes as a surprise. So there's already been a bit of a change that companies are actually promoting their sustainability work a lot. And lastly, also with like product designs, I know for example, Handels, they have a lot of workshops with companies, and I think that's great. But like try to engage people who are not maybe a part of like the formal system like a school, and get their input still in like product design or life cycle analysis and those kind of things.
Yeah. And also I would like to highlight the importance of policy as well, because we can't really be circular in companies if we don't have the policy on our side, right? So if policymakers would engage more with youth, maybe there will be a better policy change as well that is required if we are to even improve the circularity further.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, it's very nice seeing you here and feeling the energy you bring to the stage. I just wonder, you mentioned Greta Thunberg, and I actually read an article last year about the youth being divided in the Gretas or Biancas. So Bianca being Bianca Ingrosso, right? We understand that. So I was just thinking, like, how does your generation fight with this Greta, Bianca, different phases? Because also I think like one of your biggest challenge is social media, which I didn't have. And I think that is a big driver into like, if we talk about fashion, for instance, you have Greta that is using a lot of secondhand, but then you have Bianca that is promoting fast fashion. So you have these two phases in a generation where you have the pressure on social media as well. So I would like just to understand from your perspective how much Biancas there are and how much Gretas there are because of social media, right? So just we get an idea.
Well, that's such a tricky question, I think. But yeah, I can understand. I can see the Bianca versus Greta thing. But therefore, once again, I think, like you said, the power of social media is very important to spread the word, because it all comes to a value at the end. We need the Bianca followers, and that goes more to maybe fast fashion to go over to the
But I think that's such a fun question, because I think we're also a generation which is very polarized, like in many questions, not just sustainability. And this is one of those questions that we have a lot of, like fast fashion with Shein and new trend cycles like every month almost. And that is definitely a big issue, but I think what we have that maybe other generations have lacked is that thanks to social media, this information is also spreading. Like if you use TikTok and someone is doing like a big Shein haul, if you look at the comments, they get shamed for it. Like they get so many hate comments for doing that. And like I fly, so I'm not here to shame anyone, but for example, influencers, they also got like how to say it, shamed for flying. And I fly, so I'm not shaming them. But you get what I mean. So I still think that the attitude is spreading, at least in Northern Europe. I don't know how it looks throughout the world. And what I think is like when we as consumers are more impressionable and we can raise our voice very directly through social media, the influencers also get affected.
Yeah.
And I've seen actually influencers doing collaborations with like secondhand stores, like Sellpy. I know they have a lot of like small stores where influencers actually donate their clothes and sell them there. And so I think it's like a bit of like a push and pull. But I think it's from the Greta's perspective, we have to put pressure on the influencers and continue educating, but like in a way that is appropriate to that target group. Like you can still be fashionable. Look, you can buy Bianca's clothes on Sellpy. You don't need to buy new.
And what is also very good to think about is that I actually went on this climate psychology lecture a couple of weeks ago where they said there's this theory about it requires 5% of the world to really change the world, you know. So social media is really a powerful platform in that way where we can... It can be a source for good, and it doesn't require that many because I can influence 10 people that in turn will influence 10 people. So I also think it's a matter of time.
Can I say something about it?
Yeah.
I think like the influencer marketing today, it's influencers like Bianca. That's a marketing tool. So that's their business. They're like looking at trends that are common today. That's why they do what they do.
Yeah.
Not all of them are shit, and not all of them are good either.
No.
As the world is, as these companies that have policies on them to be sustainable, even though they don't make it as. But the difference here is like these people can relate to them, these influencers. So, and if the trends is going over to the sustainable, like the youths coming up, or more driven by making a sustainable future, I think they will go along with it. I mean, Sellpy 5 years ago. I mean, right now I think it's the billion company, right? I think they just got bought up. So they were not there like before. There is something in that. And by pushing these companies through influencers, I mean, that's how you get it.
Yeah.
But can I give you a question when I have the microphone? So, when you walk around and living, like, what are you thinking as most when you think sustainability? When you decided to study sustainability and that kind of stuff, what is something that comes up with in your brain all the time? Like this is. I know it's a lot, but that's the problem. I think that's why it's have been a trend and now it's trending up and it have a broad, but it's very broad. Like.
Julia, do you want to begin?
Well, since it's my education, I mean, like an engineer will think about a technical solution everywhere they go. I will think about, you know, what can improve or why do they behave like they do everywhere I go. I try to not do it too much because then it becomes an anxiety instead, and an anxiety is not the best tool to work, you know. But I don't have an answer. Like, I think about most things, actually.
And what I think about, for me at least, I think, because I work with businesses a lot, I think a lot of like the business side, like how do we make sustainability value creating? Because I think that's an essential part for actually driving this quicker. As well as like a lot with attitudes, because I noticed such a difference. Because, for example, my outfit is secondhand from Sellpy actually, and my mom, when I started buying there, she's Persian. She was like, "No, you can't tell anyone." Like it was shameful to have secondhand. But like in my generation, I feel like it's so much more accepted. So I'm also thinking a lot about like this attitude changes and how to promote them, I guess.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, attitude will be the key for success.
Yeah.
Did you remember the day that you decided, I want to work with sustainability, I want to study that?
You said you had a good story.
Yeah, no, but I don't remember specifically a day, but a period, yes, because in first year high school, I went to the economic and law linje, in high school. And our teacher, he showed us this documentary, The True Costs, on Netflix. And we had a speaker coming talking about sustainability and CSR work. And then I also wrote my thesis for the end of high school about Filippa K, a Swedish clothing brand, and their CSR work. And that really got me interested in sustainability, and therefore also think that education is such important.
And for me, I've been more working with like social sustainability, because for me it's just like obvious we need to help people forward. And with that, I guess you see how connected the different topics are. Like sustainability is a super interesting topic, but how can we make sustainability available and accessible for different groups is a super important topic for me. And also have actually, and this is actually horrible, but like the people who get most negative effects from climate change right now are poorer countries.
And women's.
Yeah, and women. And so, everything is just so interconnected. And, okay.
I have a question because you are mentioning about education. I think it's very critical for the young, especially kids, because they are the future. And I have a question maybe for every one of us can think about. So do you think for those elementary school or middle school, do they need to study sustainability as an independent subject, or all the education has to be designed into different subjects to include sustainability knowledge from the perspective of, for example, mathematics and science and some other subjects? Should it be an integrated subjects or an independent subjects?
So I'm of course no expert, but if you talk it from a, like my perspective, at least from school, I think it's super good when you do it like an integrated approach, because that's what I think is so cool with sustainability, like because it goes into so many different subjects. For example, I remember when we studied like technical science, like instead of doing those experiments, you could do like a sustainability design experiment. Or for example, when you wrote essays on the Swedish lesson, you can write something about that. So because I think it's super good as a topic as well, of course, but like integrating it, then you also catch people who are more interested in a topic, and then you just get the sustainability as well, and you see it more implemented. But what do you think?
I agree with you, and I also think that you can in that way understand how different sustainability topics are really integrated in everything we do. And how you also can link different subjects within sustainability, because then you start to see a system. Because sustainability is like you say, it's not narrow.
No,
it's super broad.
And I think in general, one thing I've just learned, it's so important to not like work in silos. And it's the same, like you shouldn't just learn in a silo. Because I remember when I learned about like more the environmental part, I didn't understand how it was so greatly affected with the societal part. Or like same with circularity, it sounds just like a business model for reducing waste, which we only think about the climate, but it's also such a social question. It affects how people are living. Where do you think our waste goes? It goes to poorer countries. For people, So I think just highlighting those aspects is super important.
So in that regard, with the education, do you think that it has changed by integrating sustainability in your education that you've described? Does it change your impression on second-hand products? That's one question. And the second is, have you guys actually had the knowledge to learn to extend the product life cycle through your education? Because I want to understand what the youth have actually gotten out from the education. I mean, when I hear about Greta and how she was so adamant about, you know what, you can fly and all that, and I was like, okay, great, sure. I mean, you make sure that you sail everywhere you go, whatever. But so, I mean, I don't know how sustainable or practical that is. But so I want to know, like, through your education, what's your impression of secondhand? That's one. And secondly, have you actually been taught how to extend the life cycle of a product? Or even, when you're using your products, do you actually think about repairing it when it's torn, like a pair of shoes?
No.
Okay, I still can't buy secondhand shoes, to be honest.
Yeah.
That's like a big no-no. Clothes, maybe, ceramic wares and all that, perfect. Shoes, So one of the ways to actually recycle shoes is to extend the lifespan, because shoes literally is wear and tear.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is your take on that, repairing and buying secondhand stuff?
Well, I think it's very interesting when you put things in different situations, because, like you said, you couldn't buy a pair of secondhand shoes. And one very common argument people have is that they would never buy secondhand sheets, for instance. But they would never they don't have a problem to go and sleep in a hotel. Or they don't want to buy a secondhand sofa. But, like, I'm sitting here and you're sitting on the chairs over there. So I think it's the mindset once again, because we have in society a bit decided what is nice and what is not nice, I guess.
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
But but also with the education, at least for me, we didn't go through that a lot. But I'm also like a lawyer, so we didn't talk about that. And in high school, it wasn't that big. We were still mostly discussing CSR. But where I've learned most of my information is honestly social media. I am following a lot of green accounts, like you said, like how do you expand the life cycle, and especially when it comes to food waste, things that are very close to you and easy to implement. So that's where I've learned most of the information. And one course in school, and it was, I don't know how you say this in English, but it's when you cook in Sweden. For some reason, we have cooking classes. And they were very environmental. So they told us, when you wash your dishes, remember to do this, or use this waste from the food in this way, and educating us in that way. And I think it's so good when you do it from an early age, because then it, like you said, it becomes natural, because we learn so much what is natural and not, even if we don't think about it so much.
Yeah. Can I also add on some implications? I just felt the education system should have completely changed, because, for example, when we study chemistry, we do experiments, we want to create something. But should we think about, we do experiments, we want to take something from the waste. We do these experiments, and then we design, after the experiments, what we're going to do with the rest. And also some other subjects, it seems like the starting perspective will be different. It's not a value-creating process. It's a value-taking care process. I think that is, as you said, mindset change.
Yeah. But I also think it's sustainability will be more and more incorporated into education as well, because I didn't as well study that. No, not really. But I think it's up and coming.
Would you buy a second-hand pair of shoes?
Mine shoes are second-hand, so...
Yes, I would. I actually bought a pair a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely.
Yes, and mine are. But I wanted to add what you said with attitude. Depending on where you buy, of course, but what we have to understand is most of our clothes are normally produced in in a sweatshop with not so good condition. So I don't know how clean they are initially as well.
So would you repair your pair of shoes?
Yes. And I have a really good contact if you need one.
Oh, really?
Job creation.
Yeah.
So we can commission.
Yeah.
I have a question. It's, to me, it feels really hard to talk about these subjects in so black and white. Like, there's so much gray area.
Of course.
And, like, how do we fight hypocrisy when we're talking about, like, Bianca? This is a really hard question. I know, it's not aimed at anybody in particular. It's just my thoughts. And, like, it's important to have balance. Because how do we talk about, like, Bianca versus Greta or whatever? We're separating these kids, or the news is, into two groups. And when we're watching this from our iPhones, the bottom of the supply chain is horrible conditions. Mining cobalt and copper, and, you know, and we're sitting here, like, you know what I mean? Like, to me, it's so hard to not talk about, like, the hypocrisy part of it as well. You know what I mean? When we're all, like, on our iPhones, on our MacBooks, each, like, house has, like, you know, 3, 4, 5 devices. Like, how do we fight hypocrisy at the same time without being like, we all go off the grid and just like live in the middle of nowhere? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do the youth have a certain opinion on this, or like, do you talk about like both sides? You know what I mean?
I think it depends on what community you are. I think like an issue in general for youth is that we can be very polarized and be in our own silos. So that's why I mean, like, some people are very like, no, you should not do anything. I will cancel you if you do this. And then there are communities, because of that, with the backlash, like, no, I don't care at all. So I think that's definitely an issue, because we really work a lot in silos. And this is just like my take on it, but it's super difficult, of course. I think we just have to accept that this is like a process, that we need to have a lot of people involved. And if we have a lot of people involved, we also have people involved that are not actually that passionate about the subject, which means that we won't have perfect results. And that's how it is with everything. Even if you're super passionate, you just have to accept that, I guess. And because of that, I really believe a bit about what you said, that it's so important to engage like policymakers, which we are doing a lot in EU, because I think this is like just my opinion, but like I don't think it's so constructive for like a 15-year-old to have anxiety that she's away on a vacation with her family.
No, exactly.
But what we need to do is to push, in my opinion, like the big corporations, because they are also the people who stand for the most of the pollution in the world.
Definitely.
And it's the same with, you know, when people have this flight thing. Before, in like companies, people flew like 10 times a week, you know? And that's where, in my opinion, the real issue.
Excess, yes.
Exactly. And then, but we will always be a bit, how do you say it? Like, how do you say it? Hypocritical?
Hypocritical, yeah. Like,
because we don't live in like a perfect society where we have, like most people don't have access to other devices. They can live off grid, but then you become so out of society as well.
Exactly.
So
No, but that's where I think actually the circularity part comes in as something very cool, because you won't change the world, you know, maybe because you're changing some small things in your everyday life, but if everyone does it, it can make a big impact. And actually the circularity economy is more of changing the system. And that's really what we need to do. Because from the beginning we have capitalism is not bad, like the idea of capitalism. What is bad is how we're doing capitalism today. And that's where the circular economy comes in.
Yeah, because you see all these like, I'm drinking from a paper straw. And like, Kylie Jenner is on her 14th flight this week. Like, you know, 20-minute flight this week. Like, what is that? You know, but I agree. I totally agree. It's just excess. And I think it's just important to have balance, like on the conversations. But it's really good, and I totally agree that it's like that the usually the individual is not the problem, right? It's like all these other processes that we have made that allow like excess.
And I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but a lot of like our shame was like coined by like a company to get us to think more about our individual than actually putting pressure on the company.
Yeah.
But I think what individual can do is like trying to promote more like circular companies, like we're already doing. That's why there's so many companies with their sustainability reports today, because we actually do care.
Yeah. I think putting pressure on companies is a very, very smart thing.
Yeah.
It's
And policymakers.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's why the youth are today suing the Swedish government.
No, but it is actually
Yeah.
super important. I work with like a project at PwC now, just like with all of the policies in EU related to circularity, and there's actually coming a lot, which is super fun. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think the EU is doing a good job actually as well.
the European Green Deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we talk about youth, just to get a sense, are we talking about Gen Z or Gen Alpha, both?
I think like I'm more Gen Z, but Gen Alpha, they are
As well,
also
after the
included.
iPhone era, that's Alpha. All right, so you guys are in Gen Z.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, I am.
right. Okay, so the other question is, from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the most very, very important, is how would youth these days pick their companies? Would they pick them based on the vision of the company, the ESG vision of the company, or from a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very important? How important is that to you? The company's ESG footprint and goals and whatever. Yeah.
I can say, for example, in my company, we have that in our scorecard. So we have goals we have to achieve to be promoted, and then you have your like a carbon emission goal to reach if you want to be promoted. So yeah, but that's what I said. So that's just like an example of what companies do. And for me, it's like super important because I want to work with sustainability, but I also know because we worked with a company like works with this, and they said like every year, like our traditional companies are getting less and less applicants just because of these reasons. And who's getting more applicants? Companies who work with sustainability and companies what we call our ESG or sustainability native, like Norfolk, trying to implement it in the core idea or like circular business model. So I don't know, of course, like an exact scale, but I would say it's more important than not, so like a 7 or 8. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. But I could see myself working in a company that's not sustainable if the ambition is there. Because, I mean, that's my work.
Yeah.
Or that will be my work.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, you need a microphone.
So, I mean, giving a number, 10 being very important. I mean, yeah, it's always looking towards, I mean, when it comes to employment, even for myself, I'll see the vision of the managers, the founders, and so with that in mind, give a number between 1 to 10, how important is it?
For me or for
both of you?
For me, it's a 10.
Oh, yeah, for me too.
Okay, so we have a value proposition.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
Now it's my turn.
Yeah.
Do you hear me?
Yes. It's okay.
Yeah. The first thing, have you heard about the World Economic Forum? What they do and everything, and about the agenda, Davos agenda? The project they have for, I mean, turning the economy more into a circular economy and like ownership kind of ending in the like the broad picture. Have you heard something about that? Okay.
No, not really.
I think they're talking about more having usership, like rent a car instead of owning the car.
And actually, as far as properties.
Okay.
So like less people owning their own properties. So that you have not heard Okay.
I've heard. Yeah, I get the idea, but
Okay, Alexandra can.
What do I think about it?
Yeah, what do you think about it? Because it have been very split vision about it.
Like, of course, it depends on from what perspective you take. Like, it may be issues that wealth can capitalize because there's very few people owning, and that's, of course, an issue. But if we focus from a sustainability perspective, I, of course, think it's good that we start owning less, that we actually don't need to own. I think everyone knows. Is it like 2-3% that we use the car? The rest of the time, the car just sits still. Yeah. And the same with like things you knew the answer, or? No. But the same with like other things we have at home, like that we don't use that often. Like that would be great if we could all share it.
Can I just fill out a question before he? But who owns that?
Yeah, that's what I said. So like the issue is of course more from the capital part of view. Like will this drive inequality, which is a risk, of course. But no.
But it's actually very interesting as well, because I think maybe if we want to live in smaller places, which we see a lot now in urban areas, because of people wanting to live in urban areas, and at the same time there's a very big increase in the storage market, as people need to store all these things. Like I moved away from home 4 years ago, and I have hundreds and hundreds of things in my house that I don't know what to do with, or I barely use, or I have to entertain them. And I mean, that's time as well. And I think time is money in today's society as well. So.
And just to add, like one last thing with this inequality, which I really think is a big risk, I think there should still be models, like we can co-own things. It doesn't need to be like a company that owns all the cars. We can be 10 people or something. Yeah.
Don't we need another kind of system abroad? Where you said capitalism is nothing wrong with it. Yes, that's why we have come so far in a lot of ways. But it's coming to an end, I'm 100% sure, in my opinion. Because it's going to be a problem with a more young people being aware broadly, and aware not only sustainable part, but like who owns what happens here, if that happens, like. And when you have one of the biggest company in the world, including in that World Economic Forum, buying up a lot of free places, like it's a BlackRock, that's the company. So when they're buying up, when they're promoting for usership over ownership and buying up all the properties, I mean the marken, like where you
the
can
land,
the land, isn't it like we don't own it, right? But the most of the capital, the most of the country, if you go to Asia and China, one of the biggest assets you have is the property, is the land there. That's why they're in crisis right now, because they are very attached to that, as America was in the early 2000s. So is that the sustainable solution? In my opinion,
and that's what I try to say. Like, of course, it's not sustainable with the ownership, but I still think that isn't the only way to own. Like, we can go together. Like in Sweden, we have something like a company form is not a company, where you own things collectively. And so I think we actually have systems that can enable it. It's just that we need initiatives that promotes it, I think.
And once again, we don't have the policy right now following the economic activities. So we need stronger regulations as well in order to, work against that kind of
What do you mean by stronger regulations?
Like regulation today is designed to follow like a linear economy, and that's why it can sometimes be hard as well for companies to implement the circular economy. But when the regulations and the policies are following, it will also be easier to work against these kinds of inequalities.
And there, I think it's every state has the opportunity to work against monopolies as the companies.
Yeah.
I guess is this on? Yes. Okay. Thank you. It's a very interesting discussion. I think, of course, it's such a complicated topic,
Yeah.
you know. So even when you think about what is sustainable, you cannot even wrap your head around where it starts, where it ends. Now there is this issue with electric vehicles, etc. Overall, we spoke about the issue of hypocrisy, etc. And what I think is also important to bounce on what you were saying regarding the usership, for example, is that actually through this vision of circular economy, you are redefining what is desirable in the society. And then you create some kind of a fake value for things. And this to me is really, it's a big problem. Because, you know, you hear this, there is this, I mean, it's a little gimmick like this, it's turning like you use only your car 3% of the time, etc. But it is not the truth. I mean, because when you own the car, you own the 3% when you drive it, and then you own the possibility of driving it when you want, you know? So, I don't know. I think that it needs to be more present, this dimension where you think about what is the true value of something that is second-hand, for example. I think it's good that people buy second-hand shoes. But the truth is that the second-hand shoes, virtually, it has no value because no one wants to wear the shoes that somebody put before, you know? So you cannot create a kind of society where the people will start to think, wow, those great shoes that 15 people put their feet in it before, you know? And then it becomes something that actually has the same price as something that is a new shoe. You know, and this is really this is the problem. It's something that is, you know, it's a bit shocking actually when you watch the transition of society. You can also see it when, you know, on the social network. Now it's a bit less, but before it has been this huge wave for the tiny houses. You know, and then you have people, because they are so ideologically convinced by this thing, they say, oh, it's so amazing, these houses, 15 square meters, let's go and live there with my 4 kids. While actually, you have been going through centuries of evolution where you were thinking, okay, you know, we want to have space for living normally. So it's a bit short-sighted and I don't know. I don't know how to position myself because I am against the over-consumerism, etc. But I'm also against the redefinition of what is desirable in the society. And it's sure that, okay, if I can go, you know, if I can go and I want to see, I mean, when is the winter here, if I can go to the south of France and have a bit sun, it's desirable. It cannot be made undesirable by the...
But I totally understand what you mean, and like you said, it's a very nuanced question. I don't think anyone has like one answer to it, of course. But I also want to add, like, what is desirable? We don't really have, like, beside like all of humans need to eat, of course, but like beside that, we can't really say it's not desirable to have secondhand shoes. Like, even though now secondhand is trending, we have always had vintage, and vintage can sometimes be more expensive than like new clothes because it has a certain value. So I don't think we should like brush off that this is like just a fake value. Or for example, like most of the secondhand clothes are cheaper. Like I think I bought these pants for like 50 kroners and their original price is like 1,000 kroners. And I think like there is actually a lot of real value in this as well. But I think an issue is more with attitudes, but also accessibility. You said with a car, like, but you also own it, so you have the possibility to drive it anytime. But what if you lived in a city and you actually would have the possibility just in like 1 minute to drive everywhere if you want to? Wouldn't you change it? Like, so you get what I mean? It's maybe it's not always a worse opinion.
You don't want to live in a city, and actually the change in the society obliges you to move to places where actually you don't want to live in cities. You were living in a village, you enjoyed the life there, but the life is made impossible by this evolution in the society.
But I think like it will not be a ban. Like if you live in a city where you will not have the possibility to rent a car, of course that would not be the situation. This is mostly for like more urban places.
Yeah, it can be for smaller cities as well because it's still it's consumption, but it's another type of consumption. But I think what you're talking about is actually very interesting because we keep on seeing what we're losing and not what we're gaining from the circular economy, you know. because maybe it is that you can continue going to south of France for 30 more years because they're running out of water down there now, you know. But if you would take the train, you would maybe have a couple of days less in south of France, but instead you will have to see 4 more other countries during your trip. Or maybe you would meet people on this train that are really nice to talk to, you know. So maybe then seeing more what you're gaining from this train trip. You get what I mean?
No, but of course I see it. But let's say that there are things that are, there are changes that you would bring about that would be circular, like developing a kind of carbon architecture with most of the things being built from renewable sources instead of being from extractive sources like cement, etc. You know, so this would be a really objective societal change that would be overall positive. You know, so I still see these things that are, but it is. Well, I don't have a.
No, but of course, it's complex.
But thank you.
I think
I also have a comment, if I may.
Yeah.
Isn't it quite important what you're actually doing right there in your answers when you say, well, isn't it about ... Because the same value does not apply to everyone.
Yeah.
You said when you do want to live in a village, but that may vary. We can even make a short raise of hands how many in this room actually desperately need the car transport every day if you wanted to, and then continue the conversation from there. I mean, isn't that the kind of conversations that we should be continuing to have instead of just this sort of introduction? What is value? Because you said yourselves, what kind of value is it for you? So what is actual value creation? And from there, deconstruct what is the value of the economic system and so on.
I think I have a good example, right? So we know phosphorus is an element that we use for the agriculture, right? And the last year, the crisis that we don't have phosphorus in the soil, in the mine. All the phosphorus went to the sewage sludge. What should we do? We should use that. As same as we think about ownership. Ownership doesn't matter. But when you talk about ownership, you think about how you take care. For example, you make a girlfriend and you want to own her. You cannot just, okay, I want to own you. I don't want to take responsibility for you, right? You can own anything, but you should take care of the value. And also we can, now I think we are still able to go to anywhere to travel. I travel next week to Italy, but we should think about travel as less as possible because we will not be able to travel that many years in future because everything is under threat. We have the climate change. We cannot grow more food. Italy decided they will not export their rice to other countries because climate becomes so like unpredictable. Maybe it's hard to grow rice next year. So what is the trade-off? I think we don't have to be very aggressively. We cannot do this, we cannot do that. But we should be mindful that we can sacrifice just a little bit. Maybe we buy a longer future. We win the opportunity, we win the chance, we can still survive. That's something I always tell my boyfriend. I don't take shower tonight. I took yesterday. Why do I need to shower every day? I didn't do anything today. I can save the water. I mean, it's so common in north of China. Not so many people be able to take a shower every day. But I mean, now we live in a very good condition. We forget what is the original life we should live on. We are the frogs in the cooking pot. That's what I felt we are.
Yes, but excuse me, this is not really the thing is not whether you wish to sacrifice or not. The problem is that because you sacrifice, it changes the value of things. So if you don't go to Italy, for example, and you say, okay, I will staycation, I will go to Yevle, It's not normal that because you decide to go to Yevle, suddenly the hotel night go in Yevle starts to be 800 euros a night, for example. It is this the problem. Like, you want to eat, okay, I try to eat less meat. Okay, I start to eat beans. Beans, it used to be worth nothing. It's the food of the poor. But because it's a healthy food and it's vegan, and then it starts to become, it starts to be super expensive. So the problem is the redefinition of value going with your, you cannot capitalize on your sacrifice. That's the problem.
That's an error of the system. We have to start to correct them. There's a concept called the true value. I was even thinking about a business idea, or not business, like a non-profit idea. How we define value? What is value? Value to you is different value to me, but the society runs based on the capital. And what we can do is now try to bring the sustainability value for the long-term consideration, because value you cannot calculate based on what I own today, what I have today. It's a long-term resilient value that gives you more chance to thrive in future. So it's hard. Every one of us have to think. We are here to figure out a solution, collaborate together, not like against each other, and not behave super aggressively. That's what I think.
Yeah. So about the, with regards to value, okay. For the youth, because we are talking with the youth, I want to use this opportunity to, understand from you guys. I'm going to ask questions so that it helps us kind of conceptualize. How important is a tripod stand to you, or a selfie stick to you? Like, and because I want to know, like, how much of social media or what sort of influence do the youth these days have? I know there's education, because what sort of influence that you have at that early onset? Because what we go through, it could either be it could be a learned experience, or it can be an inherent experience, right? Yeah. Or, they call it nature or nurture sort of things. So I think through school, it's learned experience, but sometimes with our family, our cultural background, that's kind of like innate in us. Then again, it comes to social media, it's a little bit tricky, because it's kind of like embedded in our, I think it's, how do I even say it? We are breeding it right now. Digitalization, we just can't ignore it, right? So just using the concept of a tripod or a selfie stick, how important is that to you? Do you have to bring a selfie stick wherever you go these days? Whether you go out traveling, you're going for a vacation to Italy, and you're like, oh my God, the Colosseums, and selfie sticks. Like, how, and that kind of brings to the value of, because of that, would you actually, because social media kind of encourages what we consume as well. Like, you've been on Instagram, like, there's so many things that are Instagram worthy, like, and then we buy more things and we consume more things. I find that with social media, we tend to consume because we look at how Instagram worthy it is.
Right? And ads.
So maybe with the thought, how valuable is tripod stands, selfie sticks, and Instagram, social media, and how are you influenced in terms of your thrifting journey? How often do you thrift, actually, or go on secondhand?
Like secondhand.
Yeah.
First of all, I think very few people, young people, actually own a selfie stick. I don't use one, and I don't know anybody uses one.
No, me neither.
But no, I think that's like just a very small minority, and that's what you see on social media, because those are maybe the biggest producer. But I think like most of us use social media, but it's not to the extent. I think we consume social media more than we produce on social media.
I think you're describing it really good, because we're not always. I think we have to separate social media into two boxes. There's this really learning progress about social media where you can share thoughts or value sharing as well, and then there's a consuming part. Which is it's not necessarily social media. It could be watching Netflix for 4 hours.
Does it influence your consumption behavior?
Yes.
Very much?
Yes.
1 to 10?
A lot.
Okay. For a scale 1 to 10. 10 being very much.
Or actually, I stopped. But I mean, most of the people I know,
I agree with Julia because I almost only buy secondhand. But I know like why influencers even exist is because obviously people buy when they promote stuff.
And whenever there's a launch of influencer, collaboration, and people will order 20 shirts they don't need.
Exactly.
You guys own NFTs?
I actually don't, but
what's that?
Do you know the digital like?
Talking about value.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Right, sorry. Yeah. Right, so what I'm concerned, like in this discussion about circularity, like we discuss a lot of concepts, but what I'm more concerned about is the process of like people discussing, like creating processes to help people navigate the climate crisis. Like instead of the concepts, how do we work with people to navigate our resources, to manage them responsibly? And also another aspect is that sometimes the easiest way is to start from our own neighborhood. Like there's, like from what I observed, there's often one aspect that's often ignored is the local, like the local aspect, like at our own place here now. Like I think the easiest that we can do is to work with our own neighborhoods first, to like bring them together, have a discussion, see what resources you have locally, how you can, for example, start a neighborhood farm. And from there, I believe that it's easier to create like local places, vibrant communities at local level first. And I think that's also very powerful. Like I believe the discussion works in two aspects. First, we have like internationally, we do have a discussion on climate crisis, transition to circularity, but the local level is also very important. Like we always say, like think global, act local.
I totally agree with you. And one thing we talk about a lot, which I love, is that you have to engage like the relevant stakeholders. Like, of course, it's super important to have those global conversations. But like you said, like if I want to live in a village, we can't do the same policies as we do in the cities, and that's totally true. And I think for like every community, as you say, you have to have that dialogue in it. But even though I think you should have that dialogue, I think the best thing is still to do it in a structured way, because every community are not that interested or haven't thought about it. So I think it should be structured from like a state perspective, like to promote these dialogues in such a way. And I know a work that's happening a lot right now is that real estate companies are trying to engage with their communities and creating it better. And I hope that can be an effect that continues.
Yeah,
but I agree.
Yeah, I agree as well. And actually, we work a lot with that in my education to always keep the global, and then we scale it down. And it can be from a village perspective all the way to like a UN perspective, and every work and every part of it are similar as important. You know, if you think about the big scale.
I think, like even on this level, we have great challenge in that. We have people of different cultures and subcultures. For example, even here in Stockholm, like every district, you have a lot of different cultures, different people. Like structure is important, but how do we navigate these cultural differences? I think we have a lot to learn on that level.
I agree, and I don't think like this question they don't have like an easy answer. Like this is the only structure you should go from. But I think like the dialogue with the different stakeholders is the most important part, and trying to navigate depending on their needs. Because sometimes, of course, there are cultural differences, but sometimes when we have these dialogues, we also notice like, but we are similar. More similar than we thought, maybe. Like we all actually want a car to share because I can't afford a car. Or like we all want better built apartments that are more green because that actually takes down our costs. So I think even though there are differences, which is super important, why we should have a dialogue, there's also a lot of like value creation for everyone involved. Yeah.
Yes,
this.
No, I had a comment before, but I think like it ties together with what you're saying now, and it's about like many things are about perspectives, and about this owning a car or not owning a car. In my perspective, if I live in a very urban area, I just rent cars whenever I need them. I don't want to own a car because a car for me it's a problem. It's a liability. So I don't want to take care of a car, and I don't want to own things. So, for instance, like talking about the shoes, those are things that you can repair over and over and over if you take care of them. And it's also what you can reuse and what you can repair. But there are many things that you cannot use and repair. And when you talk about designing products and like I was working in a construction company. I am a sustainability specialist, and I started sustainability 10 years ago. So it was like a new thing when I started. But one thing that we were implementing, and we saw it from the customer perspective, is that we had a room where we could have a co-sharing things. For instance, you don't want to own a saw, right? Or you don't want to own borrmaskin.
I know what you mean.
To make holes on the wall, right? Like you don't want to own that because you will use it probably once or twice in a year. So then you have a space where you can just borrow those things, and it belongs to the community. So it is a perspective of what is important to own, but what is important to share. And I think many things like car or bikes or many things you can share because they are not necessary. But there are other things that you want to own. For instance, probably a house. You know, like you want to own a house because then you can pass it on your children. So I think like this is also something that we need to understand when we talk about the circular economy, is that there are things that can be repair, that can be or design in a new, with a circular design in mind, but there are other things that we have to own, right? So we cannot just say like I think I was talking about black and white. There are many nuances and there are many different perspectives, and this is part also of what can be circular and what cannot be circular, or like how do we apply circularity in something. So for instance, like repairing shoes, I have a pair of shoes that I bought for like, I don't know, maybe 7-8 years ago, but I repair them all the time and it works for me. So that is something that I keep prolonging the life of my shoes because I take care of them, and that's a way of making it like in a circular loop. I don't need to buy shoes every year. But then maybe I need to own, I don't know, like my apartment because I don't want to rent out and pay for something. I can invest that money. So it's also about different things that can be purchased and owned, and different things that can be just shared. Right?
Really, yes. I think so too. But I would like to add on the thing, like something that's not maybe meaningful for you anymore, or what we often see as waste, can also be an asset for someone else. So instead of, maybe if you don't want to repair your shoes, give them away for someone else to repair them. If you look on a bigger, like a business perspective, and that's actually the biggest issue about circular economy, is that sometimes you don't even know that you have an asset, or what you think is waste is an asset for someone else. And that could be, I don't know, I know there's been like leakage in some industries, for instance, that have been used to warm up other industries, for instance. But it's not necessarily something you think about. And that's where we also should bring in the youths, because maybe there's more an optimistic and creative idea about it, where we can see these solutions.
Sorry, a comment on the previous comment about apartment. I would say housing is a special case because psychologically we need a home to feel safe. Like we need a home for us to thrive psychologically and socially. So I would say that's a special case. Like an apartment, we want to own apartments because we feel safe, like as a home. And I understand that some people are more comfortable with co-living, for example, like sharing a home with other people, while other people are not so. Don't feel so safe about it, and this is something that we need to consider. Yeah. And also another thing on the thing that you mentioned just now about the warming thing. I remember I think that case is probably on your mind, the one in Kalundborg, I suppose, in Denmark.
No, I'm actually thinking about the tomato, where they grew tomatoes somewhere in Sweden, and they used leakage from a factory that makes liquor, and they could lower the emissions with like 20 times or something like that. Yeah.
That. Well, like what I was thinking about is that sometimes these things like come by accident, like people find it out by accident that your waste is what I want, and I think we can encourage more experimentation on that, like find out more, experiment more, prototype more.
Yeah, really. I think we have to start
rounding up.
Yeah, rounding up. But it was super fun talking with all of you, and I really love when panelists like engaged. Yeah. It's so much more fun to be here then.
I agree.
But a big thank you to you guys, and thank you, Julia,
for
participating. Yeah. And thank you to Impact Hub and Gabriella. Yes! Do you want to say something to close it off? I like that you're hiding.
Yes, sorry. No, just like a thank you, and sorry, I had to jump for something else. But the only thing I was like having as a like reflection of the conversations of how we are like, oh, but if I do this instead of, or like choosing to fly or taking a train, but consume less or consume secondhand, etc. I think like a big, and then the topic around if it's cultural or like also just habits, or depending on the area and the country even where you live, how the system, if it enables for you to use certain, how do you say, like certain products that are already out there accessible for you to consume secondhand, then of course it's easier. But one big thing I think through this whole process, messy process of everyone getting on board on more like sustainable, more circular practices is no shame policy, meaning that we shouldn't shame each other, like saying like, oh, but you did this. You said you ate vegan last time, but you. So it's like how you're saying it's a process. It's not black and white. It's like it's a learning all the time experience, as long as we are all kind of like advancing, or it feels better internally as well, that it aligns with our values. And but yes, but just a brief reflection on my side. But on another note, just uplifting this kind of conversations and opening like just a platform of discussion, how we all live this process, it's really helpful as well, because it helps, gives us time to reflect and to just open up to the idea that others are also going through that process, and we're not just doing it in silos or
not working in silos. I
not working
agree.
in silos. Yes. Yeah. But thank you very much. Just applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last session for the day. Thank you, everyone. We're gonna put out there some beer, some drinks, happy drinks, if you guys want to stick around. And it's going to be hosted by Carlos. Perhaps they open up a question for everyone. Who knows? But yes, thank you so much.
Thank you
for today. And stay tuned for the next month's program. And about Impact Hub, if you want to know more about us and what we do, you can ask me or me. Or I'll look at it. No, you can ask us. Exactly, yes. Or you can ask us. Yes. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.